Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm, and you are watching first part of What If Naruto Was Trained by Spirits of Zabuza and Haku. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Always taking no more time. Let's start the story.
Naruto gazed at the two bodies resting next to each other. His eyes were watering as he gazed at the lifeless forms of Haku and Zabuza. Naruto glanced at the man with his arm on his shoulder as it began to snow. Kakashi, his sensei. "Can I have a few moments alone, Kakashi, please?" asked Naruto. After giving a nod, Kakashi leaves to see how Sakura, Sasuke, and the client Tazuna are doing. Naruto believed. "You said you wished we could have met in a different situation, Haku. I as well do. For the first time in my life I felt someone actually knew how I felt. Then there's you, Zabuza. You acted like you did not care for Haku, but deep down you cared for her like she was your daughter. Yes, I know your secret, Haku. I can smell the difference. Why did you both have to die like this? What if you could save them and still have them in your life? Would you take it?" A voice interrupted his thoughts. When Naruto noticed that no one was nearby, he knew it had to be Kyuubi and replied, "Yes." Kyuubi responded, "Think your answers, boy. If you want to save them, then do as I say. Place your hands over both their hearts and hold them there until I tell you. You will feel a small tingle in your arms, but ignore it. I will explain what is going to happen and how they will live Aegean later. Go ahead and bury their bodies as they don't need them anymore and take their equipment and weapons. It will come in handy later." "Why should I trust anything you say?" Naruto asked himself. The voice vanished as Kyuubi said, "Either you believe me and do as I said, or you don't and never see either Aegean. It's your choice." Naruto heard footsteps approaching and leaned down to touch both of their bodies. He soon felt a slight tingle in his arms. As she approached, Sakura inquired, "Are they dead?" Ignoring her, Naruto held his hands there. "What happened, Naruto?" Kakashi asked, glancing at him. With his eyes closed, Naruto uttered the sorrowful words, "Somehow I became friends with them during battle. I understood them." Sakura said, "How can you do that? You are an idiot." Kakashi smiled sadly, having seen what that was like firsthand. Sakura then turned and walked back to Sasuke, who was seated against the bridge. As the clones picked up the bodies, Naruto heard Kyuubi say to quit. He turned to look around, saw the Zabuza sword, picked it up, and walked back to their bodies, creating a few kage bunshin. He then said, "I'm going to take care of their funeral, Kakashi. I will return later tonight or in the morning." "You don't have to do that, Naruto. We can help and you don't need to be alone right now," Kakashi sighed. After giving him a quick glance, Naruto said, "Kakashi, Sakura would rather piss on their graves than give them a proper burial since they hurt Sasuke, and I can't deal with his ego right now. Take care of them and the client. If something happens to me, Konaha will throw a party." He left without saying anything more, taking the two bodies with him. Sasuke approached and asked, "Where's the Dobi going?" as Kakashi watched them go. Sakura simply humped and turned to follow Sasuke and Kakashi after Kakashi said, "Congrats on activating your bloodline. He's getting rid of their bodies. Let's get this mess cleaned up so we can hurry up and finish the mission." Soon after, Naruto returned to the meadow where he had first encountered Haku, and the clones began burying them. As all of this was going on, Haku slowly opened her eyes and looked around. She noticed her master Zabuza lying next to her, and she went to check on him. After realizing they were in a large room, she grinned as his eyes opened. As he sat up, Zabuza asked, "Is this death?" in confusion. There was a chuckle, and they both turned to see Kyuubi in a huge cage. Kyuubi said, "Yes, you are both dead, but this is not heaven or hell. You are currently in my prison." "What is this place and how did we get here?" "I know you're Kyuubi, but I was told you were killed by the Yondaime," Zabuza said as he got to his feet. Kyuubi snorted and remarked, "That fool was lucky. Yes, I am Kyuubi, and the girl there perished on that bridge along with you. I gave the boy a chance and instructed him on how to get you both here because he wanted you both to survive." Haku inquired, "Who are you talking about and what is this place exactly?" "That's it," Kyuubi said with a sigh. "You will understand everything if you sit down, close your mouth, and observe the sky." "What the hell?" a voice behind them said. Everyone turns to see Naruto standing there as they ask, "Where am I?" "Naruto," Haku inquired, "is that you?" Kyuubi let out a cry of silence. "I'll answer all of your questions when the damn movie on the sky above is finished, and if you don't, I'll eat you all. Leak enough killer intent to freeze all three of you." As they hurriedly settled down, they noticed the change in the ceiling, then a white room, and finally a red-headed woman lying in a hospital bed. She appeared weak and exhausted, and a nurse remarked, "Congrats, it's a boy. What are you going to call him?" A man with a smile on his face said, "His name's going to be Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." All three of them had their eyes wide open as they realized it was the Yondaime Hokage of Konaha. "That's my father," Naruto inquired. All three of them gasped as Kyuubi transformed from the demon fox into a man with red hair and red eyes. dressed like a typical Junin, and said, "Yes, and the woman with red hair is your mother Uzumaki Kushina, my sister." Naruto got up to inquire, "Wait a minute, if my mother is your sister then why did you attack Konaha and who or what are you and what am I?" With a sigh, the man said, "My name is Uzumaki Sherlock, and I am the prince of the land of Whirlpool, as people refer to our homeland. I am your mother's only sibling and older brother after leaving our country on a mission. Your mother met and fell in love with your father. We received a letter from her stating that she had found someone she loves and would not be returning to our land, even though she was supposed to return a year after leaving for her long-term mission to Konaha. My mother and father were devastated, and I went to Konaha because I didn't like it at all and thought no man was suitable for her. However, if I traveled there in my normal human form, it would take me roughly 6 months to get there. To get there faster, I changed into my kitsune form. They attacked me when I approached Konaha because they believed I was coming to attack, and I was unable to transform back into my kitsune body. When there were almost 300 ninja fighting against me, I was forced to continue attacking, and after using the genjutsu, I lost most of my normal mental faculties and acted spontaneously. Watch the remainder of the film now." They watched in disbelief as Kushina began to lose her color, then alarms went off, nurses came to help her, she died, her form changed slightly, and then Naruto's father returned to her normal appearance. They watched as a man told Minota that Kyuubi was coming, then they watched part of the battle in the ceiling, then the council voting on what to do about him, then the abuse and treatment he received, and finally they watched as he met Haku, the battle on the bridge, then 2 of their deaths, then they watched as Kyuubi gave him instructions, Sakura, and then they all looked at each other. When it was all over, they looked at each other, and Haku was crying, Zabuza wanted blood, and Naruto was sad, then shocked when Haku hugged him. "Now that you're all aware of Naruto's life, you asked your nephew who you are," Sherlock said. "In actuality, despite the fact that your father was human, you are still a kitsune. We are not demons, as people refer to us due to our strength, but nearly everyone in the land of Whirlpool is one. Think of it as a bloodline that never dries out. We are a fairly small kingdom, about half the size of the Fire Nation, but it is so difficult to get there that nobody visits, so we essentially keep to ourselves. The dragons, who are our allies, are the only other creatures in our kingdom. In addition, you are the kingdom's prince. Your grandparents will continue to rule there for at least another century or so, after which I was supposed to take over. However, since I am now sealed in you because your father called the Shinigami to help seal me, I am unable to do so, but I can mentor and counsel you so that you can succeed me. The seal stopped me from speaking to you sooner, but after you used my power to battle Mizuki, it cracked enough on the bridge for me to get in touch with you." Zabuza responded, "So why did you tell your nephew to bring us here and what is going to happen?" After glancing at them, Sherlock declared, "I have a proposal for you and the girl. I want you both to teach the kid all of your skills, including your bloodline Haku, because he has had a difficult life and has not been treated fairly, as you have all witnessed. I want Zabuza to become his official bodyguard once you have trained him to be on par with or better than you. Now that you're dead, I know you're wondering how you can accomplish that. Your souls are still alive even though your bodies are dead. If a person hasn't been dead for more than 24 hours, our family has a unique ability that enables us to absorb their soul. You can therefore have your souls placed into a blood clone or Kage Bunshin body. As long as Naruto is alive, you will eventually end up back here if your clone body dies. So basically you had me make them slaves," Naruto remarked. "How could you?" "No kid," Kyuubi said with a sigh. "You expressed your desire to find a way to put them in a different circumstance. I gave you that opportunity instead of simply passing over. Zabuza and Haku can lead somewhat normal lives because they are still alive. They can now live a somewhat normal life without having to worry about hunter nins. Everyone would essentially benefit if you decided to train under them and assist Zabuza in fixing the mist the way he desired while allowing Haku to continue serving her special someone." Zabuza was listening and responding, "Okay, I understand the training and the bodyguard deal, but what is Haku supposed to do and how will she be able to help him with her bloodline? Simply put, I would like Haku to be a little closer to him, and I want you to be his bodyguard." Kyuubi grinned. "You both witnessed what it was like for him. In fact, I believe that the hug she gave him was the 4th in his life. If she consents, I would like her to become his princess." "So, let me get this straight," Haku said, blinking and turning to face Naruto. "You desire for me to be his spouse?" "Yes," Kyuubi said. "As Naruto's closest living relative, I am currently working to set up a marriage for him because he must get married before he can become king. Based on his memories, I think you two would get along well because he already has feelings for you and I think you do too. Most of our families arrange marriages. I would rather see that pink-haired bitch die than gain authority over our kingdom because she and the majority of the people you saw would destroy it. He needs a wife who can fight as well as he can, So you must realize that you will eventually have to have children with him because they will be the heir to the throne and you must have them before he becomes king. I will have the kid here in Whirlpool country as soon as he is ready, so don't worry about how you have children. Once you do, you will both receive a more permanent body, but if it is killed, you will return here and receive a permanent body once more. I won't tell you how we do it, though, because only the king and queen are aware of it, so you will have to understand it until you take over. You will live a lot longer unless he is killed, and Zabuza and Haku will transform into animals like Naruto and I do. That's the only difference from your normal body. In order for him to obtain your bloodline, all you need to do is accept my offer and kiss him. I'll take care of the rest while you do so. Naruto responded, wait, what do you mean I have an animal form and what will Tier be? Kyuubi was saying, close your eyes and do the hand signs ox, monkey, dog, and kitsune, which looks like this, and then you will transform. When Naruto tried it, he went up in a puff of smoke after making the kitsune sign, and when it vanished, everyone could see that he was a three-tailed blonde kitsune with red highlights. As for what animal those two will be, Kyuubi stated, to turn back, simply concentrate your chakra into your chest and think release, you will return. Since it's against our laws, I can't say until you enter the whirlpool by telling you what I have. I am already deceiving them enough to get into trouble. I assume he is the sole heir? Zabuza inquired. Should that be the case, he will need to take multiple wives. Don't I get a say in this? Asked Naruto. It's my life. Naruto sighed, went over, and positioned himself against a wall after all three of them said, "No." Yes, he is the last one, Kyuubi stated. Haku would be responsible for any additional wives if he had any, as those are considered family matters, and the females of our kingdom handle those while the males handle protection. I'm not saying that women don't have rights, on the contrary. Men and women are equals in all areas except sex and childcare. The woman has the last word in those two areas, but they are weakened by caring for children or selecting other partners for the men. The men must protect the children and their partners, but if she agrees, he can have no more than 3 wives, including Haku. However, any wives he has would have to be like you and Haku are now, because we believe that our wives are bound not only by the law but also by their bodies and souls, which allows them to communicate with each other without speaking aloud. We mate for life because of this. So what do you think, Haku? Zabuza asked, glancing at Haku, who was staring at Naruto. After glancing at Zabuza, Haku remarked, I do as you please. No, Zabuza said with a frown, you have to make a decision about this. It's time for you to make your choice. I've already made mine. I do like him, but I'm not sure if it's love yet, Haku said, glancing at Naruto, but I believe it could be. In an attempt to get Naruto's attention, Zabuza turned to face him and said, boy, come here. After Naruto stood up and approached, Zabuza gave him a quick glance, took hold of his jacket, lifted him, and said, listen up, Haku believes she wants to be your wife, and since I consider her my daughter, you will treat her well if I accept this bodyguard position, shaking him. Am I understood? Kyuubi's eyes glinted as Haku gazed at them both, his eyes wide. Zabuza said, good, and Naruto nodded. You're going to need to change now. I witnessed how skilled you were at pulling practical jokes, so stop acting foolish. You shouldn't take any shit off of anyone. 2. You will need to be proud and respectable. If you plan to marry her, you will wish you were in hell when we teach you our skill. Do you get it? Both teenagers blushed as Zabuza threw Naruto to the ground and said, now kiss your fiancé so we can get started. Naruto could only nod. But I said I don't know if it's love, Haku remarked. When Zabuza asked, do you accept me as your father? Haku nodded, and Zabuza continued, then I make arrangements for you and him to get married, and laughs as both of them become even more flushed. I know how you are, young lady, and I saw how you blushed when you found him in the woods, so don't try any of that shit on me. While still a few feet away, Haku waited for Naruto to get up, closed his eyes, and tried to make faces as to how to kiss him. She felt dizzy, and Naruto felt his head explode. Despite this, Haku decided to give him some leeway and walked over to kiss him. After a few seconds, Haku retreated and Kyuubi. Good, now you will be able to hear us when you leave here, and if you want to pull one of us, make a cage bun shin while thinking of which one of us you want, and I will do the rest, but don't try and pull me out because it will kill you, and don't do it around others unless you get inventive and get a cover story. Kyuubi smirked to himself as Naruto, still in a daze, simply nodded. So you know tree climbing, right? Zabuza asked the same thing, but on water, is what I want you to do. The rules are the same, but they're more difficult. You should use your cage bun shin because, at least from what I've heard the last time I met someone who knew that jutsu, you learn what they learn. I believe he went by Itachi or a similar name. After blinking and realizing that he was sitting on the ground next to the place where he buried the two, Naruto looked up at the sky and decided to get up because he still had a few hours before sunrise. He then proceeded toward a river, where he created 30 cage bun shins and attempted to walk on the water, but he fell in. He then got up and tried again and again. After a few hours, Kakashi pursued Naruto and discovered him standing atop water. He was startled to see him passing through hand seals when 4 Mizu Bunshins materialized a few seconds later. They plunged back into the water, and Naruto collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. Kakashi was startled to see that Naruto was not only standing on water but also performing a mist jutsu, carrying a Zabuza sword on his back, and carrying an extra holster on his leg that appeared to be filled with objects based on Naruto's appearance. He decided to stop him before he hurt himself and entered the clearing, saying, "Yo," to get Naruto's attention. Kakashi shivers, laughs, and thinks, finally out of chakra huh? Naruto glances at him, grinning and sweating, then gets up and walks to the shore, passing out as soon as he lands. He had already located the graves while following Naruto's scent, so he picked him up and carried him back to the house, saying, "I'll ask him tomorrow." Upon returning home, Sasuke looked up and inquired, what happened to the Dobi? According to Kakashi, he just ran out of chakra after burying those bodies as well as the fighting today. When Sakura noticed the sword, she questioned, what is that fool doing with that sword? He's barely able to use it, let alone pick it up correctly. Sasuke-kun ought to have it, she said, approaching and grabbing the handle before leaping back in shock. Upon noticing a slight burn on her hand, Sakura inquired, what happened? After giving it some thought, Kakashi remarked, I know that some swords have special defenses that prevent anyone other than the owner from touching them, and since Naruto was the first to touch it following Zabuza's death, I assumed the defense reset for him. I am aware that Hiati has a similar one. As he led Naruto up the stairs to his room, he said, don't either of you try and take it or you might get hurt more. After checking his weapon holster, he discovered senbons, a few explosive tags, kunia and shurikens, the hunter nin's half-broken mask, and a book on pressure points for basic medicine. He took the book and went downstairs with it, asking, so do either of you want this book? Basic medicine? Sakura asked, why would I need that when I got Sasuke-kun to protect me? As Sasuke snorted and turned away emotionally. Kakashi sighed, and a voice behind him said, I will keep it, Kakashi. He had not sensed anything behind him, so he was shocked when he turned to see Naruto standing there looking angry. Kakashi simply shrugged and gave it to him, who then walked back into the room and shut the door. If anyone had noticed, they would have seen that Naruto was still unconscious and that he had changed his appearance by bending down. It was Haku, and she put the book back into Naruto holsters, melting her body into a pool of water. When Haku reappeared, Naruto was engaged in a mental spar with Zabuza, and Kyuubi inquired, so did it work? Yes, Haku said. No one noticed that I wasn't him or a water clone, and I managed to retrieve the book. With a hint of rage in her voice, she said, I still find it hard to believe that his sensei would give his belongings to those other two. Upon hearing that, Naruto was struck in the face and slid next to Haku, who asked in a startled tone, he did what? He went through your stuff and took my book on pressure points and medicine that I had, Haku said, laughing at the expression on his face as he looked down at him. She helped him up, saying, the pink-haired bitch tried to take your sword and give it to the Uchiha already, but it shocked her. After hearing this, Zabuza approached Naruto and remarked, you need to start advocating for yourself. Kid, I know you've been through a lot, but based on what I saw, you could easily take out both of their asses. It's difficult to defeat Abnu and Chunin and Junin as well as you did. All set to go again. I'm not tired in any way. With a smile, Kyuubi said, and you won't, even though we are only in his head. The kid here won't get tired, but his body will feel it tomorrow because his muscles will believe they have been fighting. Although training here won't make him physically strong or quick, he can at least learn jutsu, hand-to-hand combat, and sword skillsa. Though he will have to visualize swords first. You need to get strong quickly, so get back to work. As Zabuza knocked Naruto back with a punch to the stomach, all three of them thought, slave driver. What will I have to learn to be the princess of your kingdom? Haku asked Kyuubi as the two began fighting again. You already know what you need to learn, Kyuubi said, glancing at her. He learned that lesson from you. Everything will be alright if you think of my people as your precious people. You will need to practice using your new body once you receive it, but it shouldn't be too difficult because, unless you enter your transformed state, it will behave like your old body. Go ahead and work on your bloodline if you so choose. Although the pipes above us contain chakra, they will behave like water in this world. Seek to improve or find new ways to use your bloodline. Haku blushed as he said, after all, you're going to want to spend a lot of time with your fiancé, aren't you? With a smirk. Haku began working on her bloodline and realized he was telling the truth because she could easily perform the 1000 needles of death and the demonic ice mirrors. She then began working on a project she had been working on but never had time to complete. Someday, nephew, I will be gone, but you will live on, but I will stay here long enough for you to meet our family and hopefully start your own, Kyuubi said, setting aside his time to observe while mentally working on Naruto's body, giving him more of his chakra, and improving a few other things. I hope that by employing this method to save these two, you will grant me a small reprieve. I apologize. When Naruto woke up the following day, he was extremely sore, but his chakra supply had fully returned. He got ready for the day, but his clothes were a little tighter on him. He went to breakfast, where he noticed that everyone was staring at him, and he sat down and said, "Morning. So how do you feel?" Kakashi asked, looking up from his book. Everyone except Kakashi smiled when Naruto shifted his shoulders and uttered the words, "Like it's my birthday." Kakashi understood what that meant. Everyone looked at Kakashi before turning to face Naruto when he asked, "So where did you learn mist jutsu?" With a sigh, Naruto remarked, "I committed some of the weapons you, Zabuza, and Haku used in your fights to memory after trying a few. I was fortunate to find Mizubunshin." Thinking it might be true, Kakashi shrugged and inquired, "Can you do any other mist jutsu besides Mizubunshin?" "I've only seen the majority of the hand signs, but I haven't tried any of the others yet," Naruto remarked. "I also attempted water walking, but I haven't really gotten very far with it. It's difficult, but I can stick with it for a short time." After giving him a quick glance, Kakashi remarked, "I see. What about senbons in the book?" Naruto sighed and added, "After Sasuke was knocked out by Haku, I thought that it might be useful to learn to use them to incapacitate enemies like Haku did, and the book would help me do that as well." When Sakura screamed, "How dare you say sass?" Naruto shocked everyone at the table by using his fingers to strike a pressure point on her neck, knocking her unconscious. Sasuke's expression was one of amazement. Shocked, Kakashi smiled behind his mask and inquired, "Where did you learn that?" Naruto shrugged and remarked, "I looked at the book here and saw that this is the same location where Haku struck Sasuke and Zabuza." Her voice is aggravating my headache, but he thought, "And Haku hit that spot on me for 9 hours last night in my sleep. I reasoned that if I practiced enough, I might be able to take someone out like Haku did there. Time operates differently." "Well, don't use your teammates as a test dummy," Kakashi said, nodding. "If you had missed the spot, you might have killed her." With his Sharingan active, Sasuke grunted and commanded, "Show me that jutsu." With a shrug, Naruto made a fist with one hand and thrust his middle finger into his fist with the other, making everyone but Inari red-faced. He heard 3 people laughing uncontrollably in his head. "Well, you can take Tazuna to the bridge today while I work with Sasuke on his Sharingan," said Kakashi, shrugging and suppressing his laughter. "Yesterday, you had to practice since you knocked her out. Sakura will remain here to watch Tsunami." Naruto asked, "Can you show me a jutsu or write one down for me to practice today?" "Sorry, I don't want to overpower the team, so I can't teach you any more jutsu until the others catch up," Kakashi said, raising his head from his book. Naruto replied, "But you have not taught me anything besides tree climbing." Kakashi took Sasuke and departed in a flurry of leaves after shrugging and saying, "So, that's all I taught the others." "Lying piece of shit," Naruto thought, narrowing his eyes. "I've witnessed you privately instructing Sasuke." When he left, Naruto turned to face Tazuna and remarked, "You ready, old man?" After nodding and grinning, Tazuna gathered his belongings and they both departed. With an evil gleam in his eyes, Inari glanced at Sakura, who was unconscious on the table. He fled to his room and returned a short while later with some ink, at which point Tsunami questioned, "What are you doing, Inari?" "I just thought I would give her a present for everything she's done for us," Inari said with a smile. When her son finally acted happy again and left the room to avoid seeing what was about to happen, Tsunami sighed but was unable to say no, something she later wished she had done. Using the ink, Inari pushed her back in the chair, covered her lips and eyebrows, and drew a picture of the bridge on her forehead with the words, "Thank you," underneath. The majority of the village had gathered to assist Naruto and Tazuna. When they arrived at the bridge, Naruto got an idea and said, "Hey old man, after looking over the side of the bridge, I'll be back in about 3 minutes. "All right," he noticed Tazuna nod. After jumping over the side and descending one of the support beams, Naruto created about 400 clones using his Maskage Bunshin no Jutsu. Then he thought of Zabuza and made one of him and then one of Haku. "All right," Naruto said, "work with these guys while I watch the old drunk, is that okay?" Naruto ran up the side of the bridge and began to assist with carrying things around to speed things up and train, while Haku and Zabuza exchanged glances, felt each other's bodies, and shook their heads. They all yelled, "Yes," when Zabuza pointed to the left half, saying, "Okay, the left half works with me and the right half with Haku." Zabuza then had them practice the hidden mist jutsu and Mizubunshin while standing on water. After taking half of her, Haku said, "All right, let's try making ice with your new bloodline. It should be simple if you begin with a fluid motion and make use of the nearby water." They all went to work. If you are nearly out of chakra, dispel so Naruto-kun gets all the information. Sakura and Tsunami arrived with lunch about 5 hours later, and everyone laughed heartily at Sakura's expense because the ink Inari used was permanent and her lips and forehead were blue and red from attempting to remove it. "Where is Inari?" inquired Naruto with a spooky grin. Sakura remarked, "He's hanging around somewhere." At the moment, Inari had a lump on his head and was suspended from the ceiling in his room by ninja wire. Sakura remarked, "I wish that fog would go away." As Naruto shrugged and ate a sandwich, she gazed at the fog just beneath the bridge and said, "It makes me uneasy." Knowing it was the hidden mist jutsu, Naruto shrugged. As he finished his meal, he took his sword off his back and attempted to hold it in the manner Zabuza had demonstrated to him in his mind. Although it was more difficult, however, because of his slight growth spurt, it was simpler to walk and hold. Sakura simply rolled her eyes and said, "Idiot, quit trying to act cool." She then attempted to strike him, but Naruto raised the sword and deflected her blow with the side of it in rage. Sakura launched a full-scale assault on Naruto, who easily deflected all of her blows. Sakura quickly ran out of energy, but her rage would not let her stop, so she threw everything she had into a single punch at Naruto. Naruto smirked and replaced himself with a Mizu Bunshin, and when Sakura struck it, her hand went straight through his head. At first, she was as white as a ghost, believing she had killed him, but then she felt someone hit her in the neck again, knocking her out. Standing behind her fallen form, Naruto reflected, "I am sure glad Haku-chan taught me that one first." Over the course of the following few days, Naruto found that Kakashi was essentially throwing him to the side. He had progressed to the point where he used a Kage Bushin to transform into a fox and run through the forest, and he discovered that Kakashi was teaching Sasuke various techniques and weight training with his own weights. Naruto felt deceived, but he quickly figured out a way around it. It seems that his uncle knew something about sealing, so he had him tie a shuriken to each of his arms and legs, seal it, and then put it on the sword. Fortunately, Kakashi assigned Sakura guard duty every other day, which made her more agitated. However, when Naruto asked, "Why does Sasuke get out of doing his share of the work?" his 3 teammates gave him a crazy look. Both Zabuza and Haku made a hit list based on what they had seen, and they both increased Naruto's training. Naruto had advanced to the point where he could use the Zabuza sword fairly well, though it was still not mastered. His muscles were growing stronger from weight training, and his swordplay had improved with the help of 600 Kage Bunshins. Naruto's chakra control had increased significantly because Zabuza had Naruto clones water walk for 2 hours every day while working on the fundamentals of leaf balancing that they had seen in his memories from Iruka and modified them. Now, they were up to small rocks. Naruto's use of the Haku bloodline had also increased. He was now able to make senbons out of ice and use the 1000 needles of death, but the demonic ice mirrors were still beyond his capabilities. Following Zabuza's instructions, Naruto located Gado's hideout and promptly searched it, finding some cash and clothing with the assistance of Zabuza and his uncles. He also learned the fundamentals of storage sealing, but it wasn't all fun and games. Rewind. After following Zabuza's instructions, Naruto located Gado base and was about to approach it when he heard voices. He quietly went and began to sneak around to see what was going on, and soon he found that about 30 of the mercs they had fled had returned to the hideout, along with one new person, who Naruto noticed was wearing an Iwa headband with a slash in it. As he positioned himself against a wall to listen, he heard a man say, "I say we go back and kill them all and have our fun with the woman." A number of men applauded. "I agree we should go back, but I think we should set an example first so they won't mess with us," said the person wearing the Iwa headband. Sharingan Kakashi, the Konaha nin, has been privately training the last Uchiha of Konaha to use both his bloodline and personal training for the past few days. The other 2 alternately guard the bridge builder and his family. The blonde boy has today off, and since he was one of the major forces, you should all keep an eye on him. However, the girl is pointless. I suggest that tomorrow, since the blonde is with the bridge builder, we go to their house for a brief visit, take the girl and that woman, do as we like, and murder the young boy. We will then set up a trap so that the elderly man dies in an explosion. Upon his return, the Konaha nin will depart without their client, particularly after discovering the body of their female teammate, and we are free to do as we like in the village. Do you all agree with me? Or would you all prefer to risk running into Kakashi and the blonde again? We can't let them do that to Tazuna and his family, Naruto thought upon hearing this. According to Zabuza, I agree with Naruto-kun as well. Haku said, "I detest men who view women as nothing more than sexual objects. We'll assist in getting them out if you let us out." After nodding, Naruto created 50 cage bunshin and had them rush into the room where the men were and begin fighting, while he made one for Zabuza and one for Haku. Zabuza would have received his sword from Naruto, but he already knew that if anyone else touched it, including him, he would be shocked and would go back to the seal, so he took a pair of kuniya from Naruto and Haku took some senbon needles and they entered the fray. When he saw Zabuza and Haku enter the room where the mercs were leaving the blonde alone, the Iwanin thought that was the real one. However, his eyes widened and he exclaimed, "So the Yondaime had a son? Just by looking at you, I can tell you're his son." He charged at Naruto, saying, "I bet I can get a great reward for killing you." Naruto asked, "How did you get behind me and find me?" after turning to see the nin approaching him. Naruto was leaping out of the way as the Iwa nin threw punches and kicks at him. "I sensed you the moment you approached and said what I said to draw you into a fight." The nin said he drew a kuniya and attempted to stab Naruto, but Naruto deflected it with his sword, which he removed from his back after gaining enough space to do so. "Your stealth sucks." When Haku returned to check on Naruto after all of his clones had been destroyed and she and Zabuza had either killed or incapacitated all of the merc, she saw that he was fighting a ninja who appeared to be at least a chunin level, and she threw her final senbon needle into his back at a point that would paralyze him for life. The nin was stronger than Naruto and was easily matching him in power. The nin lost all of his kuniya strength when he felt the needle in him, and Naruto was pushing with all of his strength. Then the nin's legs began to fail, and Naruto decapitated him along the blade's length with the force of the pushing and the nin's fall. Haku gasped as Naruto's head fell from his body, turning him white as a ghost. Zabuza entered the room, saw what had happened, and asked, "First kill?" Naruto was trembling, and Zabuza said, "Kid, I won't lie to you. It's never simple, but consider this: he would have killed you, your teammates, the elderly man and his family, and possibly others if you hadn't killed him. He told you about his plan. You wouldn't create such a plan if you weren't going to stick with it. He wasn't killed by you, he would have killed everyone, but you saved them." Naruto was crying when Haku hugged him in the middle of his speech, but he asked, "Do you hate me now? After hearing Zabuza, am I a monster?" "You are not a monster," Haku said, giving him a slap. "By defending your priceless people, you demonstrated true strength. The same thing would be done by me." Then she realized that it was also her first kill because it was her fault, but she said, "I did it to save you who are my precious person. It's my fault he died also because I hit him in the back to save you. Come on, let's look around and get you some new clothes because those are bloody." Final flashback: the people cheered when Naruto said, "I found Gado base and brought all of this stuff to you so that way it will help you recover." He had used his clone army to bring everything of value to the village after searching every room for valuables, weapons, and the like. However, no one seemed to care that Naruto had about 6 scrolls of items for himself. Everyone stared at Naruto harshly when he entered the house that night. Would you believe it if a man who thrives in orange showed up wearing a gray long-sleeve shirt and black pants, a sleeveless vest over it, a huge sword on his back, and his lower half of his face covered like Zabuza's? In fact, Kakashi had dropped his book, and if it weren't for his blonde hair and blue eyes, they would have assumed he was a miniature Zabuza. He was also wearing combat boots instead of ninja sandals. "Where did you get the cloths from, Naruto?" inquired Sasuke. After observing his teammate's avaricious expression, Naruto grinned beneath his mask and declared, "I went and did the people of Wave a favor and found Gado base and got everything I thought valuable from it." He then added, "And I gave it all to the people of Wave in the middle of the village." They all looked dejected, but Tazuna and his family were joyful. "I just found some clothes that I thought would fit me as payment," he said. When Sakura noticed the scrolls, Naruto began to ascend the stairs, drawing attention to himself as he asked, "What about the scrolls?" Naruto shrugged and remarked, "I had about 20 changes of clothes, and I read how to seal the clothes in a book that explained the fundamentals of storage sealing, so I wouldn't have to bring such a large pack. Since no one wants to teach me anything, I must learn something." "What are you talking about? Kakashi taught us how to climb trees," yelled Sakura. As he approached his room and slammed the door, Naruto sighed and remarked, "Sakura, what good would chakra control do you besides make you a little faster and stronger longer if you can't do nothing but punch stuff because your teacher is too busy playing favorites?" Sakura asked, "You not playing favorites, are you Kakashi-sensei?" as she turned to face Sasuke, who was behaving as though nothing was wrong, and Kakashi, who was reading his book. Kakashi simply asked, "Did you say something?" after looking up from his book. Sakura was shocked by her sensei's behavior. "What does it matter?" said Sasuke with a sly smile. "He's nothing, and I'm an Uchiha." Sakura's eyes brightened at his smirk, and she forgot her anger. As Kakashi considered what Naruto had said, he wondered if he was correct. Am I truly concentrating on Sasuke and ignoring him and Sakura? Since he thought she would kill Sasuke if he returned. I do owe Obito to ensure his family's survival. Naruto will simply have to move on. I regret it, but once I'm done with Sasuke, I can make it up. Naruto sighed as he went to sleep that night, but he was surprised to find himself in a white hallway instead of the place where the only real people who cared for him were. He looked around, saw a door at the end of the hallway, and as he walked toward it, he was blinded by even more light. After his eyes adjusted, he saw what appeared to be a security room or something, and after entering, he saw a monitor that showed what was happening outside of his body, followed by another monitor that showed what was happening outside of it. He looked around, and a voice behind him said, "Welcome." This caused him to turn and faint upon realizing who was behind him. When he woke up a few minutes later, he saw himself standing there, but this time, he was a little taller than himself and had kitsune ears and tails. "Who are you?" asked Naruto. "I am your inner self," the smiling figure said. "I'm the one who persuaded you to act foolishly, and I've also been preventing our foolish uncle from blowing our bodies to pieces by infusing us with so much chakra. I brought you here so that I could give you an opportunity to learn more by instilling in your memory a few jutsu moves I witnessed during our time together. You will understand what they do and how to do it, but you still need to learn it. I also want you to discuss with Hakuchen the possibility of us learning one hand seal. We may have to fight that Cyclops or his little star pupil if he doesn't get his head out of his ass soon. Each person has a different hand sign, but the seals are the same. However, the chakras are used differently, which renders the Sharingan ineffective. Go have some fun, make sure you spend some time with Haku outside of the seal, and give Zabuza some time out as well." Then the room went dark. I'm not sure if we'll cross paths again. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw Kyuubi from his cage, Zabuza, and Haku sitting next to him, all of whom were worried. Naruto got up slowly and remarked, "That was weird." "What happened?" Haku inquired. "You just arrived here after falling asleep almost 2 hours ago," worriedly. Naruto stood up and stated, "I met myself, as strange as that sounds, and he said I was going to get some new jutsu he's been working on in my head, and he wants you to teach me one hand signs so that way if I fight a Sharingan I have an advantage." Kyuubi grinned and remarked, "That's a good idea. Your control is almost sufficient, so if you master them, I can also teach you some of our family jutsu. The basic henge, Kage Bunshin, Mizu Bunshin, replacement, Sexy no Jutsu," which caused Zabuza to blush and was punched by Haku, Hidden Mist Jutsu, and, surprisingly, the ability to create a sheet of ice and manipulate it to do what he wanted with a little control and imagination were all used. Naruto decided to see if Kakashi could help him, so he went downstairs early the following day and saw Kakashi reading his book while everyone else was asleep. Zabuza and Haku had a mission for Naruto when he woke up. "Kakashi," Naruto said, choosing to cut right to the chase. "Although I am aware that you have no intention of teaching me anything, I was wondering if you could assist me with a project I am working on, since I want to improve my stealth and I know you can call forth dogs like you did against Zabuza. I was wondering if you could call forth a dog that can communicate and comprehend humans so I could work with him today while you work with Sasuke." Kakashi gave him a quick glance, put his book in his pocket, and gave it some thought. Naruto saw the expression on his face, knew the answer, and said, "Forget it. I've already figured out your response," and left the house. As he was about to follow Naruto, Sasuke approached and asked, "So what are you going to teach me today?" Kakashi thought, "Well, I was thinking about it, but I don't want to use Pukin that way since he's the only one I know that would do it." He shrugged his shoulder and reached for his book, but it was gone. Kakashi said, "Stealth, looking up, please locate Naruto, follow him, and check to see if he has my book. If he does, please take it back and bring it to me without getting caught. Well, this way I can help him get stronger and also keep an eye on Naruto. He's been weird lately," Kakashi thought as Sasuke nodded and walked away. Sasuke flinched as Naruto sighed and asked, "What do you want, Teme?" after he had gone into the woods and begun practicing his kata for training with his sword. After saying, "Fight me," Sasuke leapt to his feet and assumed a fighting stance. Sasuke felt his arms go limp on his side as a pair of needles embedded themselves in each arm, immobilizing them. Naruto looked at him, performed a hand seal behind his back, and leaned against his sword, which was still a foot taller than him. Naruto said, "No, have Kakashi take them out or you may lose the ability to use your arms permanently." Naruto turned and said, before he and the two clones by Sasuke's side melted into a pile of water. Angry, Sasuke attempted to move his arms but was unable to do so, and the needles were too far away for him to extract with his teeth. Getting to Kakashi was his only option. Since Sasuke did not notice when Naruto made 3 Mizubunshin or when he replaced himself doing one hand seal, Naruto was internally happy because it turned out that his inner self was correct. He went deep into the woods, called Haku out, and sat down, saying, "So let's talk and get to know each other better, Hakuchen." He decided to treat himself today. "You're still hopeless, Naruto-kun." Haku laughed as she shocked him by pressing her lips to his, leaving him bewildered. Naruto inquired, "Why do you say that?" She sat down between his legs and leaned back against him. He smelled her hair and asked, "How is it your scent is that of your real body?" "I thought for sure it would have been mine." Haku grinned and said, "I know almost everything about you and have already told you my life. You want to know why I agreed to marry you? It was because you're kind, caring, understanding, cute, and I feel like you complete me. Let's just sit here and hold each other." Haku blushed as she looked up and said, "Who knows, my little kitsune, who knows? You know, I think idiocy runs in your family. Your uncle is the same way. Sometimes you should hear him sometimes in there. By the way, I know I am going to be happy on our wedding night." She reached into Naruto's pocket and took out the Kakashi book, and when he realized what she was referring to, he widened his eyes and muttered, "Erohime." Haku blushed even more as she began to read. Naruto responded, "How come you wanted me to make Kakashi book disappear so you could read it?" Haku leaned back once more and held it over her shoulder so Naruto could read it. "Well, you know how I told you I was a boy? I do that to everyone, and I learned if I have a copy of this book with me and read it, everyone thinks I am a guy, and over time I actually started reading them, but I have only read volumes 2 and 5. This is the latest volume, number 16. Read it with me." She would stab him with a senbon whenever he started to faint, making him forget about it and quickly preventing nosebleeds as well. Sasuke had to kick the door until someone answered it. When he arrived at the house, it was Inari who did so, asking, "What happened to you?" which caused everyone to turn to face him and Sakura to yell his name. Sighing, Kakashi remarked, "Looks like your stealth failed." He then stood up, approached Sasuke's arms, raised an eyebrow, and remarked, "He's getting pretty good at pressure points." After carefully removing them, Kakashi said, "Explain." "They won't work for about a day, so get talking," Kakashi said in response to Sasuke's attempt to move his arms. The only thing Sasuke said was, "The idiot got lucky." When Kakashi realized how good he was becoming, he laughed and remarked, "No, he's getting good to good actually." Then, to everyone's surprise, he disappeared in a whirl of leaves. As he was unwinding, Naruto felt Haku stiffen and perform a few hand gestures. A sheet of ice then materialized, and after Haku dropped the book on it, it vanished and the ice melted, allowing Naruto to feel it. He pulled out a senbon needle and said, "Trust me, I bet he wants to know how you're getting so good at pressure points." Kakashi was approaching when he glanced at Haku, who had hanged into Naruto. She then jabbed the senbon in his leg in one of his points and took out another needle. A few moments later, Kakashi showed up and said, "Yo," he asked, "can you move your leg now?" As he saw Naruto lying on the ground with his back to a tree and a senbon in his leg, while another Naruto sat there with another senbon, which it drove into Naruto's leg. The clone Haku dragged them out and said, "Let me know when the fox heals it so we can try Aegean." Naruto responded, "No, they're both numb now." Kakashi said, "So that's how you're getting better at pressure points, using your body as a test subject since the fox's chakra heals you fast." He did not see the angry expression on the real Naruto's face as he walked over and kicked the clone, dispelling it. With a mocking snort, Naruto remarked, "Yeah, it's all I could come up with since I can't get any help with my training." "What's with you all of a sudden in training?" Kakashi asked with a sigh. "I saved your life when we first met Zabuza and you gave the credit to Sasuke, who was ready to abandon you and run scared. It's bad enough that you let Sakura attack me without saying anything to her and you playing favorites with your Chinese ass, but you won't even lift a finger to try and train me," Naruto said, turning to face him. "I'm tired of everyone calling me an idiot because of the fox. I'm tired of everyone treating me like a plague. I'm tired of doing everything I can and never getting any thanks." To Kakashi's surprise, Naruto stood up and began to leave, ignoring the fact that he shouldn't be moving for a day. Kakashi was about to grab him to stop him when Sasuke approached and said, "Teach me." Kakashi turned away from Naruto to face him. Kakashi sighed and exclaimed, "What?" before realizing he had been duped by a genin when Sasuke abruptly rose in a puff of smoke after Naruto left the clearing. Kakashi lost his trail, so he turned to follow him. He began to wonder, what the hell, I did not see him make a cage bunshin and his trail ends here, so he has figured a way to trick my senses. Naruto was on the ground, panting, about a mile from Kakashi, when the ice mirror behind him melted away, and he thought, "Damn it, I still can't do that right yet." He brought Haku back a short while later, and she made another little piece of ice, which caused the book to fall out. She then said, "I had it hidden in a tree using my ice shushin to take it there and bring it here." They both then put down their books and began reading again. The following day, the bridge was completed, and Team 7 began to depart after bidding farewell. Naruto was so absorbed in his thoughts that he was unaware that everyone was watching him perform a hand gesture while wearing a glossed-over expression, despite the fact that he was keeping up with the others. When Sakura attempted to strike him, He reacted instinctively and moved away from her blow, continuing to perform hand signs. After 2 hours of this, Sakura said, "That's it, what are you doing, Naruto? It's getting on my nerves." She had also stopped crossing her arms, but what happened next startled everyone. Two Naruto appeared, one of whom grabbed Sakura from behind while the other grabbed her feet and kept walking despite her struggle for freedom and Naruto's glossed-over appearance. Looking at them, Kakashi lifted his covered eye and asked himself, how did he learn to do one hand sign for Kage Bunshins? After halting, Naruto said, "Well, are we going? I need to talk to the Hokage about something." He then accelerated his pace. Kakashi responded, "No, I think we should stop and rest a little while." As he approached and began slashing into a tree to get his body used to wielding such a large sword, Naruto gave him a look and said, "Fine." As Kakashi put it, "Naruto, stop training and rest." As he worked on it, Naruto snorted and remarked, "Why, so next time you're not around someone can kill me?" Feeling uneasy, Kakashi inquired, "What happened?" Ignoring the glances his two teammates were giving him as they tried to understand what he was talking about, Naruto turned to face him and said, "First," he then returned to his work on the tree. After realizing what he meant, Kakashi pondered what had transpired and posed the question, "How did it happen?" Naruto sighed and said, "Since I went to find you too. See if you would help me with a jutsu and I found you. Sucking up the Uchiha ass over there giving him your personal weights as well as teaching him jutsu, I decided to do something productive, so I decided I would try and find Gato base and see if I could find anything there to help with my training as well as give the people of Wave back their stuff. But when I got there, some of the guys we ran off of the bridge were there and they were planning on attacking the village as well as killing Tazuna family while I was at the bridge with Tazuna and Sakura there with Inari and Tsunami. Apparently I was not the only one who noticed you pampering the Teme every day. One of the guys turned out to be a former Iwa Nin, and guess what? With just one look at me I found out who my dad was, since I am the spitting image of him minus the whiskers. I see you already knew. Chalk up another thing I am pissed at you about. Anyways, with my cover blown, since my stealth was not good enough, I had to fight. Luckily, between my mass Kage Bunshin no jutsu and my sword practice, I was able to beat them all to a pulp, but I wound up killing the Iwa Nin. Oh, and by the way, in case you have not realized it yet, Sharingan Kakashi, this is a Kage Bunshin body and I am actually at the gates of Konaha right now. CYA. And he went up in smoke, followed by the other two. With wide eyes, Kakashi began to say, "We move now." Sakura and Sasuke exchanged glances before following him into the trees. When he learned from the Kage Bunshin that Kakashi knew who his father was based on the expression on his face, he decided to exact a little retribution. He had 3 Kage Bunshins out and had one of them perform a Hinata impersonation in the middle of the road. Sasuke then approached, took off his mask, and began kissing, but Naruto was not looking. The Sakura clone then began to yell, "That's right, Sasuke Uchiha is off the market now as he has fallen in love with his sensei Kakashi. They plan to get married after he makes Chunin." This attracted the attention of everyone in the area, and once at least 75 people witnessed their makeout session, Kakashi and Sasuke leapt up on the roof and vanished in smoke. Sakura and Naruto swiftly escaped the onlookers, and as they approached the tower, Naruto reenacted Kakashi and Sasuke before continuing their journey. "So Team 7, how was your mission?" the Hokage asked, looking up from his paperwork as they entered his office. Before they all went up in smoke, Sasuke locked the door and closed it, raising the Hokage's eyebrow. Naruto then covered his new clothes and sword with his henge, saying in a stern, almost angry voice, "We need to talk, old man. I have a lot of questions and you have a lot of explaining, and I came back ahead of my team to get those answers." The third person said, "Is that you, Naruto?" Naruto laughs and replies, "Yeah, it's me, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, son of Minota Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. By the way, that C rank was actually an A rank, but we completed it. But I made my first kill on the mission, but the Sharingan dickhead was too busy fucking the Uchiha to pay attention to know that before I had my clones tell him when I was walking through the gates they should be here this afternoon or tonight sometime, so let's chat." Knowing that this would be a lengthy conversation, the third sighed and said, "Your father asked me to hide your parents from you until you were 16 or a chunin. Your father was the last of his clan and your mother has no family." Naruto responded, "Wrong, I have an uncle and grandparents in Whirlpool country." "Well, my uncle's not, because I ran into him on the mission as he was tracking the Iwa Nin that I killed, and he showed me a picture of my mother and him along with my grandparents after he saw the spiral design on my cloths and asked me about it because of some shit that happened. I had to see all my memories including my birth and mom's passing and my naming and the council meetings and all the hell. Anyways, my grandparents are the king and queen of Whirlpool, so let's continue." He crosses his arms. "How do you know that he was telling the truth?" The third person asked, glancing at him. As he approached the window and gazed out at his father's face, Naruto sighed and uttered the words, "You would not believe me." "Try me," said the third. Naruto glanced back at him and said, "I met the fox after the bridge battle. In my head he made me watch all my life and tried to make me break, and that's how I know the picture of my mother and the one in my memories were the same woman." "What happened after that with the fox, I mean?" the third person asked, nodding. Naruto took a breath and said, "I told him I don't care what the fuck he said, and I told him that if I die he dies, so he is either going to pay me rent with his chakra when I need it, or I would kill myself by jumping off the Hokage mountain or tie some boulders to my feet and jump into the ocean or something to make sure we both die anyways. He told me I had balls for threatening him, and he agreed and shoved me out of the seal." The third person nods and responds, "I knew your father and mother were hiding something. I never knew what, but I had thought it was you, but I guess I was wrong. Your dad must have known about her being a princess, so what do you want?" Naruto replied, "Look, old man, with the way my team's been lately, as well as having to relive my entire life and finding out facing Kyuubi and the problem of my first kill, I want to be alone for a while. I want to go to Whirlpool country to meet my grandparents and my uncle. Apparently I am a prince, and when he gets back to Whirlpool he is going to inform my grandparents that mom had a child." After giving it some thought, the third said, "I'll send you and them when your team returns." Naruto put his hand on the keyboard and replied, "No, not my team. I have had enough of them, and I will do more than knock them out with pressure points. If I have to stay with them much longer, I can make the trip myself, since I was told how to get there and also told where a messenger was for the people of Whirlpool, so I can have them come and get me, and it's only about 2 days travel from here." According to the third, "I can't send a genin." Naruto replied, "Then I will become a missing nin. Old man, I am to the snapping point, learning that not only was it my father who sealed Kyuubi in me, but also that my sensei knew who I was and still treated me like shit. I don't want to mess with it now. I just need a couple of months to get this out of my head and to finally meet my family, so please, old man." The third sighed and replied, "Fine, but on certain conditions. 1. You must send me a message every 2 weeks. 2. You must get some proof from the king that you are indeed his son and send it with one of the messages. 3. You must not do anything that would be considered treason to Konaha. 4. You must be back in 3 months by April 22nd, because that is the day the Chunin exams start, and I suspect your team will be entering and you must enter with them." Nodding, Naruto continued, "That's fine, but can I ask for a few requests? As I am right now, I am not ready for the Chunin exams. I need a few jutsu because all Kakashi would teach was tree climbing. I taught myself water walking while balancing a rock with chakra, Mizubunshin, hidden mist jutsu, and ice needles. I have been working on kenjutsu with Zabuza sword here, but I still have a long way to go even with Kage Bunshin helping, which reminds me. Why don't you use them to help with paperwork anyways? I got some money, though I gave about 99% of it to the people of Wave from Gato hideout, as well as some cloths since my old ones were covered in blood, and a whole bunch of weapons from the Merc. I would like to sell the weapons, but I don't know who to sell them to who won't cheat me, and I would also like to get some training gear as well. That reminds me, here is the head of the missing Iwa nin I killed," as he gave the Hokage the scroll. Stunned, the Hokage placed the scroll on the desk and inquired, "How do you know how to seal?" After taking out 2 books, Naruto said, "This one taught me some medicine and pressure points, and this one taught me sealing." The third person, who had read both books, glanced at them and nodded. After hearing the popping sound that indicated the third had unsealed the head, Naruto went to the window after the third nodded and bit his thumb. Naruto turned around when he heard it being resealed a short while later, and the third person asked, "Do you know who he was?" The third person said, "His name was Audley, White OC. He is a B rank missing nin from Iwa, wanted for murder and rape of over 200 men and women and children before the cage of Iwa decided he needed to be killed, but he escaped before they could. He is worth $1.5 million in the bingo book. He was a master of stealth and torture. You did a good job, Naruto. Do you need to talk to anyone about it?" Naruto replied, "I already did. My uncle. I am just lucky him and his team showed up when they did, or the Merc would have killed me when I was discovered. He decided that with the guy dead he would return so he could notify the rest of my family about me. I wanted to talk to Kakashi, but when he not only forced me and Sakura to do Sasuke's share of the work of guard duty after Gato death, and then him going through my equipment pouches and took this book on medicine and tried to give it to Sasuke and Sakura while I was nearly out from chakra exhaustion, and then his refusal to even let his nindogs help me with my stealth as well as everything else he did, I figured he would just say something like, 'Looks like the villagers were right,' and go back to reading his book." The third person looked gloomy on his face and replied, "I see. Yes, it is lucky for you they showed up then. I am sorry about Kakashi. Naruto, as for your request, take this note to the address and hand it to the man named Dustin and be honest with him about who you are. Bekwase, he was one of your dad's best friends and he knows you're not the Kyuubi." After taking the note, Naruto questioned, "What about the jutsu? When do you want to leave?" asked the third, who had just looked up from his paperwork. Naruto replied, "The sooner the better. I would like to leave before my team makes it here because I don't want to put up with them." The third nods, then reaches into a drawer and takes out a small piece of paper. "I will have everything ready in 3 hours. Here, go get what you need, and oh, before I forget, channel some chakra into this paper for me." The third person was wide-eyed and said, "Wind, water, and ice, that is unique. Okay. Go and get your stuff, and I will get you some scrolls as well as a couple of books to help you and seal them up for you, as well as give you a training schedule to help you." Naruto grabbed it, and it split down the middle. Both sides then became wet, and where the split was, ice formed. As he left, Naruto grinned and said, "Thank you." The third person asked, "What do you think, Jiraiya?" After the door had been shut. "I think he's better than he lets on," a man who had entered from the balcony said. "He went to the window when I dropped my pen, and that guy he killed was also an S-rank nin, not a B-rank." The third replied, "I know. I did not want to make him think he was stronger than he was by taking out an S-rank nin. What about him having family?" Jiraiya replied that, "It's possible. Kushina did say she did not want to talk about her past. I think she just wanted to live a normal life instead of that of a princess." The third responds with a nod, "I want you to let him sign your contract so we can keep in touch. If he can use Kyuubi chakra, then he should have no problem." "All right, but before he leaves the village, he needs to try to call forth a frog deal," Jiraiya said, nodding. "Deal," said the third. "The third thought of something and wanted me to get you real quick," Jiraiya said as she appeared beside Naruto and disappeared in a whirlpool of leaves. She then grabbed Naruto and departed. They both showed up on the outskirts of town, and he dropped Naruto, causing everything he had in his pockets to fall out. He then pointed to a copy of his book and remarked, "You read my work." "That's Jiraiya of the Sannin and Arthur of Icha Icha Paradise," said Haku. Just as Naruto was about to respond, "Yes, though I only just started and had to steal that copy from Kakashi. You're Jiraiya of the Sannin, right? Would you like the rest of the collection?" Jiraiya nodded, and Naruto shook his head, flinching from the fangirl's squeal. "Why's?" from Haku in his head. "Anyway, I was your dad's sensei, and since you need to keep in contact with the third, I decided to let you sign the toad contract, and will also have some jutsu with the third for you when you get to the tower, though you have to summon a toad before I will let you continue. Understood?" he said, pulling the scroll from his back. When Jiraiya finished his entire introduction, Naruto nodded and said, "Now put as much chakra as you can into it and see what you get." With a sly smile, Naruto thought, "Hey uncle, let's floor this pervert." He heard laughter in his head as chakra surged through him, and after a few hand seals, he found himself standing atop a toad that was 100 feet tall. "Jiraiya, why have you summoned me?" he heard, wide-eyed. Jiraiya replied, "I didn't. Minoda-san did. He's the kid on you head. Why should I allow you to summon me and my kind? I respect your father, but you have not earned my respect," Gamabunta said, turning to face Naruto. "I will give Aroanan down there the money to buy you a whole barrel of sake, since I am not old enough to drink or buy it yet. I know you like the stuff because I can smell it on your breath," Naruto said after giving it some thought and smelling the sake on Gamabunta's breath. Gamabunta responded, "I will agree, but only when you can summon me 2 times in 1 day, and every year you must buy me a drink, and when you get old enough we will drink together. Deal?" After Gamabunta vanished after Naruto said, "Deal?" Jiraiya was shocked and inquired, "How did you know about his alcoholism?" He went through the hand seals again and slammed his hands after Naruto said, "I smelled the sake and took a gamble. Now time to finalize the deal." Gamabunta then reappeared, standing on Jiraiya, and he looked around to see Naruto grinning while standing on his nose. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Well, you are now my subordinate, so I give you the right to summon me and my kind, but if you call me for anything unimportant other than drinking sake, I will make your life hell." He then departed in a puff of smoke. After getting himself out of Gamabunta's footprint, Jiraiya laughed and seized Naruto. The two of them vanished in a whirlpool of leaves and resurfaced in front of the store selling wolf claw weapons. "See you later," Jiraiya said before leaving again. He looked at the paper with the address, saw that Naruto was there, and went inside after blinking and saying, "That was cool, but ice is better." Ignoring the look the third gave him as he dropped his pipe, Jiraiya arrived at the Hokage's office and said solemnly, "Well, we have our communications worked out. He just summoned Gamabunta twice in a row." Naruto is back. As soon as Naruto entered the store, an overhead bell rang. He turned to see a girl sitting behind a counter with brown hair and 2 buns in his mind. He heard Haku yell, "That's change, bring us out quick." When he was abruptly thrown against a wall, Naruto was about to wonder why, but a man with brown and gray hair grabbed a kunai at his neck and asked, "Who are you and how did you come by that sword?" A voice said, Please leave my future son-in-law alone, Dustin, and it's nice to see you still keep a kunai on your hip. Naruto pretended to be afraid for a moment. Ignoring the angry look the man and girl were giving him, then 2 puffs of smoke appeared, and the man holding Naruto felt a kunai at his neck. Soon after, Naruto felt released and collapsed to the ground, staring at Haku, Zabuza, and the 2 stunned individuals. What the hell's going on, Zabuza? He asked, getting to his feet. Can you close up shop for a little while, Dustin, so we can talk in private away from the view of the regular people? Zabuza asked, observing people strolling outside the large window. As he said, Tenten, take them to the living room while I lock up. The man who still had a kunai at his neck had it taken off. Dustin put his hand on Naruto's shoulder, said, sorry about that, and pushed him into the back room. Naruto was massaging his neck when the brown-haired girl said, follow me, everyone. After his cordial greeting, Dustin asked, so what exactly going on here, Zabuza? And a few moments later, everyone was seated except for Naruto, who had decided to stand. Zabuza murmured, well, we met the Gaki here and his team in Wave and Needles to say Kakashi killed Haku with something called a Chidori, and I died after my employer double-crossed me and kicked Haku's body, and the kid wanted to kill him but was almost out of chakra from fighting Haku because she had her mask on, but after he broke it he saw it was Haku who was his friend. We died, but the Gaki here is giving us another chance at life because of his bloodline, and so we are going to be getting new bodies when we get to Whirlpool to see his family, with an air of boredom. Stunned, Tenten and Dustin turned to face Naruto, who said, I was told to give this to you. He then handed him a piece of paper that the Hokage had given him, which Dustin read with wide eyes. Dustin sighed and said, you look just like your father. Please pardon me for earlier and allow me to introduce myself and my daughter. My name is Dustin, and this is my daughter Tenten. Allow me to introduce Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, son of the Yondaime Hokage. Dustin said, take off your face masking. Naruto reached up and pulled them down. Tenten's mouth was open and on the ground as Haku said, and Prince of Whirlpool Country. Dustin's eyes widened. Tenten looked at Zabuza and said, wait a minute, your future son-in-law how? Zabuza let out a sigh and stated, Haku is going to marry the kid here and I am going to be his official bodyguard, and we are both teaching him our skills including Haku bloodline which now he possesses as part of the deal we made. As Dustin prepared a kunai, he inquired, is he ransoming you into this? Zabuza laughed and replied, no, I decided to treat Haku as my daughter and I want to see her happy, and that's why I am doing it. While Haku was getting some herbs to help me recover, she ran into him and they started falling for each other. After jumping up and running over, Haku grabbed a scroll from Naruto's vest and said, open it. Naruto sighed, bit his thumb, and opened the scroll. Haku looked at the scrolls numbered 1 through 5, channeling chakra into number 1. A copy of Icha Paradise Volume 1 appeared, and she giggled and sat back down, ignoring the looks she was getting from everyone. Tenten inquired, how did you get that, Haku? Haku raised his eyebrows and said, my little kitsune here just signed the toad contract for Jiraiya-sama and summoned a huge-ass toad, and he gave Naruto the complete collection as a gift. After giving Naruto a quick glance, Dustin remarked, you summoned Gamabunta? Tenten and Dustin gave Zabuza a wide-eyed look when he said, twice in 5 minutes. How do you all know each other? Inquired Naruto. Zabuza laughed and replied, well, I met Dustin about 6 years ago when he was making a tour to all the countries to get supplies for his business, and after I told him why I tried to kill the Mizukage, he agreed to meet me every year somewhere and allow me and Haku to resupply ourselves, and we became friends and write each other from time to time with pre-approved meeting spots. Haku and Tenten became pretty good friends. That mask Haku had on was made by Tenten. In fact, they practiced their first kiss with each other. Haku and Tenten both looked down and blushed as they screamed, Zabuza. Tenten questioned, why did you call him a kitsune? As Naruto grinned. This made Naruto tense, and Dustin responded, we can't say. Naruto took a breath and replied, it's okay, I am immune to that law and am the only one who can let others know, so go ahead since I am here and tell it. Dustin responds by saying, Naruto saved the village here the day he was born when his father sealed Kyuubi into him when it attacked the village. Tenten or Dustin noticed the glances that Naruto, Haku, and Zabuza exchanged with one another, and Tenten responded, that's not the reason, is it? Naruto took a breath and replied, not entirely. I recently found out when I found out who my mother and father were while on the mission to Wave who and what I am. Believe it or not, everything that happened at the beginning of the Kyuubi attack was not what most people think or for the reason he came here in the first place, while leaning against the wall. Zabuza replied, you want me to tell the rest? I know it's a little hard for you and I trust them so they will believe me. As everyone turned to gaze at Zabuza, Naruto sighed and said, sure. Zabuza continued. Kyuubi real name is Uzumaki Sherlock, Naruto uncle, and he originally came to Konaha to bring his sister back to Whirlpool country because he did not believe the man she married was good enough for her. Some idiot thought if it's big it's an enemy, so they attacked him and Kyuubi defended himself, and it snowballed after that. He could have came in his normal form, but he wanted to get here quicker, so he changed into his fox form. End of story. The kid here got fucked over by this village because of an idiot, and he not only lost his mother a few minutes after birth but his father who died sealing his uncle into him. Now his only family is his grandparents who are the king and queen of Whirlpool, who we are going to see, and his uncle who was just able to talk to Naruto on the wave mission when he used his chakra in a fight, and he can't even touch him because he is inside a prison cage inside Naruto. It would be equivalent to claiming that Gia and Lee enjoyed spandex. To say that the two were shocked I would be understating it. Dustin finally overcame his thoughts and said, "So Kushina was a kitsune?" Naruto responded, "Yes, like me." He then transformed into his three-tailed form, which was roughly 3.5 feet tall, with 3 tails behind him and blonde fur with a red highlight. The world now has some unwritten rules. A woman is never transformed into a cute, cuddly animal with ears and a tail. Both Haku and Tenten produced the same result. Last time, Haku was too shocked to take action, but this time, things were different. Soon, Naruto was on the ground, with Dustin and Zabuza laughing as Haku and Tenten played with his ears, fur, and tails. When both of the girls got off of him, he glanced at the clock and said, "Zabuza and Haku, I know you both want to stay and visit cause I get the feeling you are all close like family, so I already gave you both enough chakra to last most of the night or until tomorrow depending on how much you use, but I have to be at the Hokage's office in an hour and a half, and I still need to sell these extra weapons and get me some gear for the trip Bekwase. I want to be gone before my team gets back." As he stood up, Dustin said, "Let me see what you got, kid." After drawing 2 scrolls, Naruto rolled them out on the ground, poured a large amount of chakra into each, and opened them to reveal all of the weapons and clothing inside. After giving them a quick glance, Dustin declared, "I will give you a $200,000 for the whole lot." Naruto replied, "Deal. I also got money to add to it. What I need is some storage scrolls, senbons, kunia, shurikens, weights, and some more cloths similar to what I have now, along with some ration bars and soldier pills. Anything either of you can think of to add to that," as he gazed at Haku as well as Zabuza. Zabuza replied, "No, that's all I can think of until we get there. What about you, Haku?" After pondering, Haku uttered, "A first aid kit." As Dustin stood up and walked out of the room, Naruto nodded and said, "Tenten, can you get all that real quick while I get something?" Tenten then headed toward the front of the store. She said, "I got you 200 of each weapon and enough rations to feed you for a month, and 2 boxes of soldier pills and 2 first aid kits, as well as a box of blank scrolls that will be $60,000. Tenten returned a few minutes later with a single scroll. "Can you make Haku another mask since I broke her last one? I don't mean she needs it, but it was special to her, so I think I should pay to replace it," Naruto said, taking $100,000 out of his pocket. Haku blushes as Tenten nods, and they begin discussing her mask before retiring to the back. "I don't doubt you, but I need to do one more test to make sure you are his son, so would you mind putting a little blood on this scroll for me?" Dustin said, passing them and approaching Naruto while holding up a scroll bearing the kanji for yellow. Dustin smiles and says, "This is your dad's scroll that contained the Hiraishin jutsu in it. All I know is that it involved these kuniyas, but I have no idea how they work, but they're yours if you ever figure out how to use them. I have the master mold for them here, so I would be glad to make them for you." Naruto nods and bites his thumb again, then applies some blood to a seal, causing it to shatter. After examining it, Naruto inserts the scroll into the other scroll he received from Tenten and says, "Thank you." Dustin follows Naruto to the front of the store, locks the door after he leaves, and says, "I'm sorry, but I have to go. Take as long as you and Haku need Zabuza, and I will see you when you dispel." "Okay, now that he's gone, I want the whole story," he said as he made his way back to the room where Zabuza was. "Well, it all started when we were hired by a man named Gato," Haku said after returning with Tenten after Zabuza laughed. After leaving the shop, Naruto went to his favorite ramen stand and spotted Iruka. He sat down next to him and said, "How's it going, Iruka-sensei?" Iruka turned to face him and realized it was Naruto when he took off his mask. "I have been good, Naruto. When did you get back? How was your mission, and what's up with the clothes?" Iruka smiled. Naruto nodded and ordered 10 bowls of ramen. "It was different. I met my family. learned who my parents were, had a bridge named after me, and a whole lot of other stuff. I am actually getting ready to leave the village for a couple of months to go meet my grandparents." Iruka was taken aback and replied, "Sounds like you had a great adventure. I am sorry to hear you're leaving so soon. If you don't mind me asking, who were your parents? I might have known them." Ayame replied, "Yeah, Naruto-kun, I always wonder that as well." As he bit into his meal, Naruto grinned and remarked, "Look at the mountain behind me and add whiskers to each of their faces. That's a clue as to who my father was." After a moment, Iruka and Ayame both gasped and turned to face Naruto and the Hokage mountain. "Are you serious?" Iruka asked. With a sly smile, Naruto began his fourth bowl by saying, "My real name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, nephew of Sherlock Uzumaki and grandson to the king and queen of Whirlpool country. Take that, Konaha." "I guess that explains why then, huh?" Iruka remarked. Snorts as he says, "Don't get me started on that. Anyways, I got to see the old man, and since I know your business is going to hurt while I am gone, Ayame and old man ramen, here's for mine and Iruka lunch, as well as a little payback for all the times you let me eat for free." As he sets up $500,000 and gets up only to stop and say, "Just make sure you got a warm bowl for me when one come back for the Chunin exams, and we call it even deal." With a smile, the chef said, "Deal, and it will be on the house." "Maybe I can bring my fiancé as well," Naruto said with a smile, "but I got to go because I want to be out of here when the rest of my team gets here. See you." He then stood up and headed for the Hokage office on foot. When Iruka asked, "Did he say fiancé?" With everyone's mouths hanging open, they all nodded and turned to face his retrenchment. Iruka thought, something's wrong. Something happened on that mission if he wants to be gone when they get here, and what's he doing back first, when she first saw the sword. After entering the Hokage's office a short while later, Naruto said, "Okay, old man, I got everything I need from the weapon shop, so can I go now?" The third looked up from his paperwork and replied, "Yes, Naruto, here's the scroll I got for you, and there is a seal on it, so only you or me can get it. I used your chakra from your elemental test to make the seal on it, and it will only stay open for 5 minutes after you let go of it, since it only knows mine and your chakra, so no one else can get the jutsu in it." "Well, old man, see you later," Naruto said with a smile, took the scroll, and placed it in his pocket before leaving the office and making his way to the north gate. Following his departure, the third replied, "Follow him, Jiraiya, and make sure he does not get into trouble with what you have learned. Don't let him know you're following him, though." After nodding, Jiraiya leaps out the window and begins to follow Naruto from a distance. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes, shook his head, and leapt over the wall to follow Naruto, who took to the trees and appeared to know exactly where to go. Naruto swiftly left the village, and the guards never attempted to stop him or ask for his papers, assuming he was fleeing to be a missing nin so he could be killed. When Team 7 arrived at the gates approximately an hour later, the guards turned to face them and asked, "How did you all leave the village Aegean without us knowing?" After giving them a quick glance, Kakashi said, "We just got back. Whoever you let in was not us." He then departed in the direction of the Hokage Tower, Sakura and Sasuke poised to fall behind him. When a crowd gathered in the street and someone yelled, "There he is, the guy who is sleeping with the last Uchiha, let's get him," and charged at the bewildered Kakashi, they had traveled about a block. In an attempt to get close to him, a girl yelled, "I'm coming for you, Sasuke-kun, I'll show you what a woman can do for you and not this gay pervert." Team 7's 3 members were all perplexed and jumped onto the roof in an attempt to escape, but the roof was also blocked. With a sigh, Kakashi made all 3 appear in the Hokage office using Shushin. The third, acting completely innocent, looked up from his paperwork and said, "Oh, Team 7, good to see you, Aegean. So how was the mission, and where is Naruto?" "Well, the mission was a success, but there were a few problems, and as for where Naruto is, I don't know," said Kakashi, who was perspiring profusely. With a hint of rage and a hint of murderous intent, the third squinted his eyes and said, "What do you mean you don't know you're his sensei?" With a sigh, Kakashi said, "Well, he used a cage bunshin to distract us on our way back from the mission because he said he needed to talk to you and came back early, but he said he was at the gates when the clone dispersed. He acknowledged that he had not had a chance to get his book since it vanished." The third inquired, "So you're saying you could not tell that your student was a cage bunshin, Kakashi? Do you have any idea what he wanted to talk to me about?" Sakura remarked, "The idiot said something about a first kill and some Iwa." Kakashi covered her mouth to silence her, and the third used enough ki to freeze the 3 of them in place. "What is this about an Iwa nin, Kakashi, and what happened on this mission?" he then inquired. "Do you want me to let my team go before I tell you anything?" Kakashi moaned. The third replied, "No, I want them here for the whole thing, since they may have seen something you haven't, to help me learn where Naruto is." So Naruto just started going off on his own doing who knows what, and you never bothered to check on him because you were spending all your time helping Sasuke with his Sharingan. Tell me, Kakashi, while you were doing this, was Sasuke guarding the client any, or did you have just Naruto and Sakura switch back and forth? Kakashi started recounting everything that happened during the mission. With a sigh, Kakashi said, well, but was interrupted by a knock on the door. Ibiki entered and said, I apologize for disturbing you, sir, but I have verified the identity of the nin you requested me to check. It was Audley. White OC. He is an S-rank missing nin from Iwa who is wanted for the murder and rape of more than 200 men, women, and children. The third person nods and responds, thank you Ibiki, I will have the money put in Naruto account when he returns in a few months. The third person turned to Team 7 and said, thank you for confirming the report I received from Naruto. Now tell me Kakashi, where were you when Naruto faced that man he killed? As Ibiki nodded and walked away, leaving everyone in disbelief. Sasuke questioned Kakashi, who was in shock, how did that dobi kill an S-rank missing nin? The third person said, shut the hell up boy, you get out of line one more time and I will have you handcuffed to Tora for a month. Now Kakashi, answer the question. According to Kakashi, I was with Sasuke. The third person asked, Sakura, besides tree climbing has Kakashi taught you anything, and if so what? After giving it some thought, Sakura said, teamwork. The third replied, so he just lets you hit Naruto and fawns over Sasuke and teaches you and Naruto nothing. The third asked, Sasuke, how much has Kakashi taught you so far and what jutsu? If I find you don't answer honestly, I will ban anyone from teaching you anything else. He could see that Kakashi was beginning to feel bad, but he wasn't finished yet. The third asked, Kakashi, when Naruto asked you for either scrolls, jutsu, help, or even help with your summons, what was your answer? Kakashi flinched as Sasuke listed off roughly 20 jutsu. With a sigh, Kakashi remarked, I told him I did not want to overpower the team. The third inquired, and what was it you were doing with Sasuke? And don't tell me teaching him about his bloodline, because you could have done that with one jutsu also. Why did Sasuke get out of helping guard the client while your other two students did the work? From what I heard, it was Naruto who did the distraction, came up with the plan and only included Sasuke in it because his aim was better to save your life, and then you totally ignore him. Answer me as to why you did that. Kakashi replied, well, I did not want Naruto to brag about it because I was afraid it would go to his head. So then why did you not say thanks to the whole team instead of just Sasuke? The third person said, slamming his fist against the table. Kakashi, did you know Naruto taught himself water walking and has also gotten his chakra control down good enough on this mission to summon a boss summon twice? The third asked, unable to respond. Stunned, Kakashi questioned, what summon? Smirking, the third said, Gamabunta. According to Kakashi, so Jiraiya-sama has taken him. The third replied, no. Naruto, when he returned with finding out who his family was and that he had family still alive, asked for a leave of absence. Jiraiya was here and he volunteered to let Naruto sign the Toad contract as only a messenger service so I can know where he is and get him if I need to. Other than that, I gave him 5 jutsu for each of his elemental affinities that were in the schedule for genin teams if they had those affinities that you should be teaching instead of what you were. He took the scrolls, resupplied his weapons and food and left on his own to head to see his only family he has left. I just hope that he decided to return, because if they treat him halfway nice he may not with the way this village and his team has treated him. Sasuke inquired, why does that dobi know how to summon? I am a Uchiha and should be the one who. As of right now, Kakashi, until Sakura is up to my standards with Sasuke, and I mean teaching her everything you did with him as well as teamwork, and I mean actually teaching, and that includes the weight training as well, you are not allowed to teach Sasuke anything else. In fact, the third said, slamming both of his hands on the side of Sasuke's head and leaving his chair before anyone could see. Kakashi, if this is how your student is acting with your training, I might have to send him back to the academy for being a fuck-up, because that attitude will not only get him but also his team. The only person in this village who can undo the jutsu I used on you, Uchiha, so you cannot cheat, and your pay for this mission will also be reduced to a D rank pay for both you and Kakashi for not completing your parts. Yes, you fought, but that is not the purpose of the mission. It was a bodyguard job until that time comes. I have sealed off his bloodline, so he must learn not only respect for authority but also proper training techniques. Did you know that had Naruto not only done his job on the mission but also with his finding Gado hideout and killing this man, he not only saved the client's life but also his family and your female student's life? That Iwa Nin had came up with a plan to attack while Sakura was guarding Tazuna family with over 20 merc, and based on the plan and your own account of the mission I can say it would have worked perfectly, and Sakura here would have suffered the same fate along with the client's family as over 200 men, women and children that this man has either raped and or killed. Had it not been for a hunter team that showed up when they did, Naruto would have died, but Naruto did kill the Iwa Nin and they let him take the credit for it because they had the mercs and one of the hunters turned out to be Naruto uncle. Kakashi, your student should not have been in those dangers in the first place. You should have known better than to make a routine so blatant that your enemies can plan for. You should have been helping your students, especially with his first kill, which you were so far absorbed into training only one student you did not even realize. You should be thankful for Naruto, but you blatant disrespect is enough. I am tempted to have you locked in jail for the next 30 days Kakashi with no porn. Before Sakura asked, Hokage-sama, when Naruto clone left he said he found out who his parents were. Who were they? Kakashi was in shock and fear. The third replied, well, it's an S-rank village secret, but since I know I can't keep it quite much longer, look at the picture behind you and add whiskers to the faces on the wall and you should be able to figure out his dad. All three turned, but Kakashi knew where to look when his two students gasped and growled. Kakashi asked, where is Naruto? The third member replied, as of right now Naruto is not on your team any longer until the exams, and I may just include him on another team and ban your team from taking them if I do not feel they are ready. And Kakashi, I know about your private teaching to Sasuke after your team meetings as well, and I am ordering them to stop. If you are not teaching both members of your team evenly, then you are not to teach them. I am also banning you from reading your books the entire time Naruto is away, and should I find that you are reading them before he returns, then I will not only ban all stores in Konaha from selling them to you, I will have Kurenai burn your collection, and I will also have you locked in jail for 30 days. Do I make myself clear? Sasuke inquired. Why is the Dobi getting special treatment? Is it because he's the Hokage's son? He was slapped for it, but Sakura was shocked and couldn't believe she had done so much to everyone's surprise after learning that Naruto had rescued her from both rape and the Yondaime-san. Her inner voice pushed its way in and defended him. Sakura quickly began to apologize, but Sasuke began to attack her with hand gestures until Kakashi struck him, stopping him. The third observed this and replied, apparently Kakashi, your team is the worst of all the genin teams. I still can't believe you would do that to Naruto, not only after knowing he is your sensei's son but also saving your life as well as that of Sasuke from that masked hunter nin. I am getting sickened by you the more I look at you Kakashi. Until your team is up to speed I am banning them from taking any missions, and I will be putting a third member on your team to not only get trained but also to report to me what you are teaching and not showing favoritism, since I am finding myself questioning your judgment. Now get out of my office. After Team 7 hastily departed, Sasuke declared, Kakashi, I demand that you release my eyes. He was unable to get his eyes to function. In a flurry of leaves, Kakashi sighed and said, I can't. I don't know what he did or how he did it. Meet at Team 7 training ground at 7 AM tomorrow. His greeting was unexpected when he arrived in front of the memorial stone because Jiraiya had slammed him into a tree. Jiraiya responded, Kakashi, after what I saw from the Gaki and heard how you and his team treated you, I am tempted to kill you. That kid is on the breaking point thanks to you and your team's action. Both the third and I feel that had we not let him go with our guidelines, then he would be a missing nin now or gone on a killing spree, depending on if someone pushed him over the edge before he made it out of town. I am following him in secret, but I have to say one thing, the kid training himself has paid off for him, but if he would have had help he would not have made the same mistakes he is. You better pray nothing happens to him because of this or you will be the first one I take out, and he turned into mud. With a sigh, Kakashi approached the memorial stone and said, I'm sorry, sensei. In order to complete his paperwork in an hour, the third decided to test out Naruto's idea with the cage bun shins and instructed his secretary to conduct all meetings. Iruka was standing there with a furious expression on his face when Kakashi returned home from the memorial stone. Kakashi would be admitted to the hospital an hour later due to a broken nose. After more than 6 hours of fast-paced travel through the trees, Naruto made the decision to spend the night somewhere. He slept in a tree and set up some traps. Looking at her friend Haku, who was seated in a chair, Tenten said, so let me get this straight, you are marrying him, becoming a princess, and also getting a new body. Tenten was lying on her bed. Yes, he's sweet, kind, and caring, and he's been through hell in his life, Haku said, nodding. Tenten exclaimed with a sigh, I still can't believe the people of this village would do all the things you and Zabuza said, but with Dad saying he's seen some of it as well, it sickens me. Haku smiles and continues, that's why I feel so close to him. He's shown me love, even though we only know each other a little bit, but it has made my feelings for him grow. Tenten inquired, so are you going to share him or are you keeping him all for yourself? Haku paused for a moment and replied, well, I was thinking about keeping him all for myself, but I might share him if I find someone who would treat him kind and believes the way I do about protecting their precious people, but I don't know anyone that would fill into that category besides you, but you're in love with that Neji kid. Tenten sighed and replied, Don't remind me. Yesterday after our team training I asked to talk to him privately, and when we got away from our teammate he told me to hurry it up because his fate would not allow him to be late to his training. What the hell kind of guy talks about training when a girl wants to confess her feelings for him? Haku chuckled as he said, almost as bad as that Hinata girl and her following devotion for Naruto-kun. Though she can't and won't tell him, he may act like an idiot, but he knows how she feels for him, but he does not care for her the same way, so he acts like he does not even notice to keep from hurting her. With wide eyes, Tenten exclaimed, he knows he's that Naruto. After a glance at Haku, Tenten realizes the truth and begins to laugh, saying, I thought he was born in orange. I'm sorry, I guess now that I know the truth odds are that's all anyone would sell him. Haku replied, that's why I said I would only let someone else marry him if they felt for him the same way I do and believe the same way. Tenten responds by saying, if you take away everything he's been through and the way he acts because of the village, he seems to be a great guy from what you said. With a laugh, Haku remarked, I think you like him. As she reclines and gazes at the ceiling, Tenten remarked, no, I mean, I don't know, I just met him, but from the way you describe him as he sounds perfect. Yes, he is, heart, body, and mind, Haku said, blushing. Tenten asks, raising an eyebrow, body. Tenten flies back with a nosebleed as Haku leans over and whispers in his ear. How the hell did you luck onto someone who looks like that, and how do you know what he looks like? She asks after getting cleaned up. With a beet red blush that matched Tenten's, Haku remarked, while inside him we can see what he sees and hear what he hears, and I looked when he was cleaning himself in the shower. Both turned away when there was a knock on the door, and Tenten yelled, enter. So what have you both been talking about? Asked Dustin as he and Zabuza entered through the open door. In jest, Zabuza remarked, I bet it was Naruto with the blush you both got. Both men's eyes widened when Tenten said, you both were listening in, weren't you? Zabuza replied, I was joking, I did not think you actually were talking about him. I just wanted to tell you before you went to bed that it was good to see you again, Tenten, in case we leave before you get up, Zabuza said, letting out a sigh as Tenten turned away. It was good seeing you, Aegean. Will I see you both, Aegean? Tenten nods. Haku stated, we will be coming back with Naruto-kun. His uncle has a plan, but he won't say yet what it is. Sighing, Tenten remarked, so it will be when the exams come up, huh? With a nod, Haku said, yeah, it has been fun seeing you, Aegean. Change. Tenten grabbed Haku and gave her a hug before Haku vanished into smoke. Tenten said, I hope you all have a safe trip and return quickly. Can you tell her I'm sorry? Tenten asked, letting out a sigh. Zabuza looks at him and says, don't forget you can't tell anyone about us or about his true heritage. The Hokage thinks that Kyuubi is evil and Naruto mother is just an ordinary princess. If people found out he was really a kitsune, all hell would break loose. Remember what I talked to you about, Dustin? I better go or Haku might jump him. He waved goodbye and then ignited. With a smile on his face, Dustin asked his daughter, so what's up with you, Haku and Naruto, huh? Tenten flushed, grabbed some kunia from beneath her pillow, and began hurling them at her dad, who was laughing as he fled the room. When Haku and Zabuza came back, Naruto was asleep. They approached the cage and inquired, why is he sleeping? Kyuubi commented, I think everything is finally hitting him. He woke up here after falling asleep and then laid down and fell asleep in here. He made good travel so far, but I got bad news. What's wrong? Haku inquired. Kyuubi responded, Naruto noticed he's being followed by that pervert. He made it look like a mistake and overshot a branch, but he actually put a cage bunch in against a tree, and as he continued the clone saw the pervert following him and dispelled to tell him that means until we either lose him or make it to the shore, neither of you can leave. The good news is at the rate the kid is going, he should be at the shore in a day or two at most, then it will take 4 days to get to the border of Whirlpool country. With a nod, Haku approaches Naruto, sits next to him, lifts his head, places it in her lap, and begins to stroke his hair. Kyuubi asked, so, did your friend agree? As Zabuza grinned. Zabuza replied, yeah, he agreed to it, but it will take time. You think the kid is going to like it? Kyuubi laughed and replied, yes, if Haku would have been in here when you mentioned that kiss, she would have had a field day with what went through his head. Zabuza inquired, when we get our real bodies will we be able to talk like that still? Kyuubi took a breath and replied, yes, you, me. The kid and Haku will all be able to talk to each other through our minds by thinking which one of us we want to talk to. It's something my family came up with nearly 6,000 years ago after some people tried to kidnap the heirs of the kingdom. Zabuza responds with a nod. It comes in handy. I've been meaning to ask you, since I am Naruto bodyguard, does Haku get one or how does that affect her? Kyuubi replied, when you get your new bodies I will explain it then, because if I try to now it would be confusing and I don't want to repeat myself. Sighing, Zabuza said, I understand. After realizing that Haku and everyone else were asleep, Naruto got up the following day, went behind some bushes, created a cage bunshin, and then used an ice mirror to transport himself a mile away while Jiraiya was distracted by his cage bunshin. Then he started at full speed in the direction he had been instructed to go the day before. When Jiraiya heard Naruto unzip his pants, he woke up and remained hidden until he emerged from the bushes. He then slowly made a spear and built a small fire pit, trying for 2 hours to start a fire before giving up and throwing an acorn at Naruto, who was stunned when he went up in smoke. He promptly extinguished the fire after realizing he had been duped and headed in the same direction as Naruto the day before. He discovered the first signs of Naruto in the shape of a ration bar wrapper about 7 hours later. He might have overlooked it as mere trash if it weren't for the name on the wrapper identifying it as coming from Konaha. After his clone was vanquished, Naruto, for his part, accelerated as much as he could and, when his chakra was low, ate a ration bar before taking a soldier pill before stopping. He ran for almost 36 hours straight, but by the time he did, he had arrived at the location Kyuubi had requested. Haku began teasing Naruto for being foolish and slamming his body into the ground in that manner as soon as he entered his head from exhaustion. I could explain, but since it's pretty much the same tirade that most women use when a guy does something dumb, I'll let you imagine. Zabuza opened his mouth to speak, but Haku decked him. Kyuubi remained silent by using his infinite wisdom. Naruto finally had enough of Haku's tirade after 3 hours and took the only action he could think of to stop her. He gave her a kiss. After they parted ways, Naruto said, "Will you be quiet now? You were giving me a headache." He was referring to Haku's half-lidded eyes. Since they knew he had just opened another can of trouble, Kyuubi and Zabuza both slapped their foreheads. After glancing at Naruto, the room's temperature fell to 0, and Haku said, in a mercilessly icy tone that chilled everyone, "I'm giving you a headache. Let's see if I can make it a migraine." Following his instincts, Naruto began avoiding the ice crystals that had formed on the ceiling and began to fall toward him. She asked in a sweet voice, "How do you feel now?" After Haku had successfully placed him in an ice cage that resembled a prison cell after about 30 minutes. With a swallow, Naruto uttered the words, "Perfect, my princess. Everything you touch in my life is perfect." Haku laughed and said, "Good." She then melted the cage, came over, put her arms around him, and kissed him. Naruto released his tension as she did so, believing that the worst was over. After breaking the kiss, Haku left Naruto looking pale and said, "You tell me that Ajian and I will make sure you never have any kids." After deciding that Naruto needed to wake up, Kyuubi pushed his chakra into his system, forcing him to stop thinking. When he woke up, Naruto could just make out the area around him and the ocean in front of him. However, a few feet out from the shore, there was an archway of some sort with poles on either side and one across the top that had a circle cut out in the center of it that extended all the way through, with an X in the center of the circle. Although the sun had not yet risen, it would do so shortly. Kyuubi responded, "Listen quickly. When the sun comes up, there is a stone behind you and you will see an X appear on it. When you see the X, put some blood in the center and channel chakra into the blood until you see a bridge appear on the water. When it appears, take off across the bridge and don't stop until you reach the first island. Once there, find the next arch like this one and wait until moonrise and do it Aegean. It should take about 7 hours to get to the island, and that will give you 4 hours to rest before we can go to the next island. We have a total of 7 islands we have to cross before we can actually stop and rest for more than a few hours. Just keep repeating sunrise and moonrise at every other island. Do you understand?" When a wooden bridge appeared, Naruto thought, "Yeah, I got it. There it is." He began to run across it, but after 20 minutes or so, he turned to look behind him and discovered that he only had roughly 50 boards total, of one for each direction, because one would rise and one would set. Naruto understood that stopping would leave him in the middle of the ocean with nothing to walk on but water, which would deplete his chakra more quickly than simply running. Naruto began running across the bridge when Jiraiya arrived, and he was about to follow when he noticed the bridge beginning to plunge into the water. Stunned, he turned to see Naruto's blood on the stone. He watched as water ran over the stone, causing the blood to disappear, and he saw the X's outline move slowly across the ground in the direction of the water. "That's how it works," he thought. "Ingenious. Looks like I'm stuck here until sunrise tomorrow." Naruto maintained this pattern of taking a few hours off and then continuing for the next 4 days. He wouldn't have advanced as far if it weren't for his supply of soldier pills and ration bars. Kyuubi told him to rest after they stopped last night because tomorrow would be their final challenge before reaching Whirlpool. After sleeping through the night, Naruto woke up at around 10 in the morning to discover a freshwater spring on the island and some fruit to eat. Then, as instructed by Kyuubi, Naruto stepped onto a cliff overlooking a beach. He gasped as he looked off the cliff and thought, "So that's why it's called Whirlpool Country." Naruto noticed a coral reef encircling a massive island in the ocean, but the way the reef was constructed gave the impression that it was a massive whirlpool. Kyuubi responded, "Yes, but don't let the view fool you. This is the final defense of the island before you get to it. It might not look it, but the water is running through those coral reefs with enough force to eat chakra fast. You only have about an hour to get across before you would have to eat a soldier pill or die if you had not had any. The current is so much that it will literally try and pull you around the island and not let you approach. You will have to run with the current and approach in a spiral like the design you had on your orange outfit until you actually make it to the island. If you stop moving at any time, the water will push you back out away from the island. Our ancestors made this effect so no one could disturb our homeland, and if they made it then they would have been extremely weakened, so we could either capture them or kill them depending on why they came." Incredulous, Naruto questioned, "Is there anything else I should know to help do this?" Kyuubi reflected and replied, "No. Just don't stop. Even if you have to take a soldier pill, don't stop, and don't touch the coral reefs either. There are seals in them that drain chakra if you touch them." Haku heard Zabuza murmur, "They sure want their privacy." Haku merely gives a nod when Naruto noticed something flying. He questioned, "What is that?" Kyuubi glanced at what Naruto was observing. "That would be a dragon. If one comes and tries to stop you, just keep running, but don't be rude. Answer his questions, but keep running. If you get pulled under the water, we all die. This is not a joke, so only go when you are ready." After walking down the cliff, Naruto took a seat for a short while to try to relax and make sure his soldier pills were in his shirt pocket. He then got up and started to cross the water. He began running at a slight angle with the water after sensing a change in the water and realizing he was in the whirlpool. He had already circled the island twice and was about halfway there when a dragon appeared flying next to him and asked, "Who are you and why have you come?" A shadow passed overhead. As he ran around the island, Naruto continued to say, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, and my uncle Sherlock told me to come here to meet my grandparents." The dragon said, "Sherlock disappeared nearly 14 years ago. How do you know him?" As it flew next to Naruto and sniffed the air around him. "He is sealed in me by my father who summoned the Shinigami to do the sealing," Naruto said, continuing to run. "If your father wasn't Sherlock, then who are your parents?" the dragon asked, its eyes narrowing. As Naruto grew weary, he grabbed a soldier's pill, took it, and exclaimed, "Minota Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki." For a moment, the dragon's eyes widened, and Naruto began to lose his balance on the water due to the energy he had been burning lately and the soldier pills he had been taking. Then, an idea came to him, and he began to make hand signs and transform into his kitsune form. The dragon saw this, sniffed again, and said, "When you make it to shore, do not leave the beach or you will be killed. Someone will escort you to see the king." The dragon then flew away, leaving Naruto running on all fours in order to reach the island. After about 35 minutes, Naruto eventually reached the shore and, still in his fox form, passed out from chakra exhaustion. Naruto woke up in a pitch-black room with no light, but he could tell he was on a bed because of how soft the surface felt. After taking a short break, Naruto said, "Hello, anyone there?" Naruto sighed when he heard a latch sound and a door open, revealing a room filled with dazzling light. Naruto had to adjust his eyes to realize he was still in his fox form and changed back when a man in his 40s with an eye patch on his left eye passed by. He said, "Welcome sir, please follow me," and turned to leave. Despite being exhausted and stiff, Naruto stood up and followed the man. After walking down a lengthy hallway, they turned left and continued walking for roughly 5 minutes until they reached a set of large double doors. Naruto was amazed by the design, which featured a dragon on one side and a kitsune on the other. The man said, "Wait here," and then walked away from Naruto. Naruto pondered, "Hey, what now?" Kyuubi paused for a while and said, "Listen carefully, Naruto. When they ask you who, you repeat what I say right now. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and I invoke the right of ritual tribunal. After you say that, do not say anything else or do anything unless I tell you. Don't look around the room or anything. You must act like you are king and don't bow to anyone. If you show any sign of weakness here and now, you will be dead before you know it. Here they come." When Naruto heard a noise, 2 doors opened, 1 man opened each, and a 3rd man stood in the middle of the room, saying, "Follow me." Naruto followed him, leading him across the room on a red carpet and up to a flight of stairs with a set of chairs. An elderly man with red and white hair and icy eyes gazed down at Naruto. A woman with green eyes and black hair stood next to him. Her eyes were similar to Naruto's, but there was also a hint of something else, though Naruto wasn't sure what it was. On the throne, the man said, "Who are you?" Naruto replied, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and I invoke the right of ritual tribunal." As Naruto looked straight ahead, he heard gasps coming from all directions. The man on the throne narrowed his eyes and asked, "What gives you a right to ask this?" Naruto said nothing in a kinder tone. The woman next to him said, "Please answer my husband." Naruto said nothing. Naruto was confronted by the man who had led him to the stairs, who said, "Answer His Majesty when he speaks to you." Despite his eyes turning from blue to red, Naruto stared at the king and remained silent. "Repeat what I say word for word." Kyuubi smirked. Naruto said, "Listen up, you little insect. I don't care if you are the third strongest of the royal guard. Kushina still kicked your ass when she caught you peeking on her at the hot springs, and my uncle who is inside me now said when he gets out of here he is going to give you another bite on your other ass cheek, but this time he will use his permanent fangs. Go play with your tail one wing before I lose my temper and break your other wing." He was staring at the individual who was in the middle of his face. "The ritual of tribunal shall commence immediately. Please escort Naruto to the chair," the man on the throne said. Naruto followed the man who seemed to be evaluating him as he led him out onto a balcony with a lone chair that had arm restraints on it. Kyuubi then instructed him to sit down and maintain his composure, and he was tied to the chair. 20 minutes or so later, Naruto was dozing off in a balcony chair, but almost 2,000 people were standing below him, gazing up. With a cheer from the populace, the king said, "The boy here claims to be my grandson. He has invoked the rites of ritual tribulation. Let's watch and see if he speaks the truth and decide what to do." The sky over the island abruptly darkened before resuming its original appearance when Zabuza and Haku first saw Kyuubi. The populace watched as Naruto was introduced, and the king and queen were shocked to see their daughter die and confirm that the boy was, in fact, their grandson. After witnessing the sealing, the populace became enraged with Naruto's life. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this, let's take a moment to review some history. Only about 2% of the island's population are regular humans who have earned the right to live here, either through their ancestors or themselves. The majority of Whirlpool's residents are either kitsune or dragons. They hold each other in such high regard that the dragons are their faithful guardians and trusted allies, and the kitsune are the island's king and queen. After almost 14 years of thinking that the royal family, which has ruled in harmony with its subjects for more than 20,000 years, was about to end, with both heirs to the throne thought to be dead, a child prince appears one day, and the people witness their prince being treated like an animal that should be put down. It would be like saying that the sun is ice cold. Whirlpool residents were on the verge of wanting to murder everyone in Konaha. They kept watching, and soon they saw Naruto's beloved people. They also watched him learn the reasons behind his hatred, and many of them vowed to slowly kill Mizuki. Many people cheered when they saw Naruto meet his uncle and discover his birthright, and they watched the entire wave mission. While some might have wanted to protest, they felt that Zabuza had the right to be named his bodyguard and that he would be trained to be better. They had also heard about Haku's life and witnessed how the prince liked her, making most of them like her as well. Following that, they watched Naruto play the Hokage. Many of the kitsunes laughed at the trick he played on Team 7 and deftly made up an excuse for his visit. They saw Naruto meet Tenten and Dustin, learn about his real origins, and then travel here. Zabuza told Naruto he had Tenten and Dustin, but he kept it a secret until Naruto sat in the chair. After it was over, the king remained silent for a while in an attempt to control his feelings before asking, "What is the verdict?" "I, the leader of the first Dragon Knight, swear my protection of Prince Naruto," a man with green hair said. "I, the leader of the second Dragon Knights, swear my protection," a red-haired woman said. This went on while 12 distinct individuals vowed to keep Naruto safe. "I, the leader of the North Kitsunes, swear to follow the rule of Naruto and accept him as my prince," a woman declared after that. "I, the leader of the West, also accept Naruto as my prince," a man declared as he stepped forward. When a 15-year-old child said, "Long live Prince Naruto," says the East, several people laughed at his lighthearted demeanor. The crowd cheered when an elderly woman with white hair said, "I, leader of the South and oldest of the Kitsune, swear on my life to not only accept Naruto as my prince but also swear to make his life as happy as I can until the end of my days." The queen took the stage and said, "I want to thank everyone for their support in this matter. On behalf of the royal family, I hope that my grandson will bless each of you in the same way that you have blessed him today, and as I end the ceremony and ask the dragon taskmasters and kitsune maidens to arrive so we can greet our 2 additional guests." After applauding, the group quickly disbanded and resumed their business. "Did you see enough Jiraiya of the Sanins?" a man asked as he crossed the street from the castle. "Yes," Jiraiya said, shedding his invisibility cloak. "Why did you let me stay if you knew I was here, and who are you?" "I am Aragon, the official bodyguard of the king and the captain of the 12 Dragon Knights," the man said, glancing at him. "When you first arrived on the island yesterday, everyone knew you were here before taking any action. We waited to find out who you were and why you were here. I believe the Hokage asked you to follow him and check on him based on what we witnessed. Yes, Jiraiya said with a sigh. We were concerned that this might have been a trap for him because a group of men are about to pursue him. I'm relieved it wasn't. Aragon inquired, will you go with me to see His Highness? Could you tell me anything about these men and why they are pursuing him? He'll wish to talk to you. After being escorted to the king and queen and given a proper introduction, Jiraiya nods and shares with them all that he knows about Naruto, including Atatsuki. After listening quietly, the king remarked, I'm concerned about his desire to return to Konaha, but we can protect him here. But I have to ask, why didn't you remove this boy from that village if you knew who he was? We thought that if people saw me with a child, they would have been able to tell that he was his dad's child, and then he would have had Iwa and a few other countries trying to kill him. Jiraiya sighed. Although I can see that it was not nearly enough, it was agreed that the Hokage would watch over him and provide him with some protection. Despite the village's hatred for him, I was unaware of the nature of his life. Even though I knew it was bad, it was worse than I could have ever imagined. This is not good for our people, the queen said, casting a downward glance in the event that something else occurs. I worry that they will destroy your village without warning, and neither my husband nor I will be able to stop it. All I can do is hope that nothing will motivate them more. Jiraiya inquired, what will happen? No, the king declared, I will let you go back to your homeland, but you must keep what you saw and heard here today to yourself. You will inform the Hokage that Naruto is with his family and will return for the exams as he promised, but that he will be joining a new team and serving as a co-ninja of both Whirlpool and the Hidden Leaf. I won't allow someone like that Kakashi to look after him. His official sensei was a complete failure, even if he did have another one in a way. The only thing Jiraiya could say was, is there anything else I should know? I'm referring to the rumor that Kushina was a kitsune, and that her son was as well. No, the king said. That's all for now. After giving it some thought, Jiraiya remarked, I think I should be going back. I don't want Naruto to believe that I'm here to destroy his life. The king ordered Aragon to take Jiraiya back to the island before the Whirlpool. After hearing everything she had to say and giving the Hokage of Konaha a scroll. A weight on his chest woke Naruto, who opened his eyes slowly and blinked before looking down to see a mass of black hair on his chest. He blinked and pushed the hair away, revealing Haku's face dozing on him. He tried to recall what had happened. The last thing he remembered was sitting in a chair and then waking up here, but it took a few moments before he realized he was not in the seal and that Haku was out. A moan caught his attention, and he saw Haku open her eyes. She blinked a few times and turned her head to see where she was, and when she saw that she was lying on Naruto, she bounded off of him and looked around. Then she realized she was not in the seal, pinching herself and feeling pain, and she exclaimed, I am alive. After setting up, Naruto questioned, are you in a clone body? No, a woman's voice said behind Naruto. Both teenagers turned to see a woman in her late 30s with blue hair and green eyes staring at them. She is in her new body. Naruto-sama. How did this happen and who are you? Haku inquired. The woman bowed and said, pardon my manners, Lady Haku. My name is Ellen, Kitsune priestess of the royal order. Blinking, Naruto questioned, how do you know her name? Well, your highness, the people of Whirlpool witnessed your life when you invoked the rites of the ritual, the woman said with a smile. Because you asserted your right to royalty, everyone must respect and know you in order to obey your authority. This way, everyone is aware of everything that took place prior to you sitting in the ceremonial chair. We are aware of your relationship with Lady Haku here as your future partner. Because of this, Her Majesty had asked me to wait until you both woke up before bringing Lady Haku before her to explain her training and her responsibilities as this nation's future queen. I apologize for not being able to tell you more at this time. She bowed once more and said, someone will be with you shortly, sir. Then Haku said, what about Zabuza? He has already been given his new body and should be learning his official duties as bodyguard soon, the woman, who was still bowed, stated. I apologize once more for being so hurried, but a lot has been planned to prepare you both for what is ahead, so I must ask that you accompany me. Lady Haku, you should both be aware that you probably won't see each other again for at least a month, but you will be able to communicate virtually once you are shown how. Naruto-sama, we have to depart now. After they parted ways, Haku followed the woman away, leaving Naruto sitting on the bed. Naruto turned to face Haku, walked over, hugged her, and said, welcome back. She kissed him back. In Naruto's mind, hey uncle, now what? It's good to see you again, Naruto-sama, and I must apologize for my disrespect of you earlier, said the man Naruto had threatened when he saw him at the door after he received no response. But we had to make sure you were who you claimed to be. He turned to go down another walkway and said, now, if you will follow me, the king would like to see you. He was followed by Naruto, who said, look, in case I made you mad earlier, I just was repeating what my uncle told me to say. It's quite alright, Naruto-sama, said the man next to him, beginning to laugh. It didn't offend me actually. I was your uncle's bodyguard prior to him being sealed in you. So if you had behaved differently, I wouldn't have trusted you when you claimed he was in you. My name is Edgar, by the way. How come I can't talk to my uncle right now? Asked Naruto with a smile. Edgar explained, it's because he's exhausted from the procedure we used to revive your two friends. He will most likely be absent for a month or longer. With a frown, Naruto questioned, so he can't get out, huh? Unfortunately, no, Edgar said with a sigh. We have a lot of knowledge, but your father was clever enough to call forth the one thing that conceals something that we cannot reverse. He would perish with you if we attempted to extract him from you. The fool is now being held accountable for his actions. With a sly smile, Naruto said, thank God. I was worried that everyone would be cautious around me because of the way you and that woman were speaking. I can tell you won't if you call my uncle a fool. Edgar grinned and remarked, we try to behave the way we want to be treated, but when it's not necessary, we act formally. It is how we are both human and regal. Most people overlook this flaw. You're a dragon, said Naruto, aren't you? They said as they strolled. Yes, I am one of the Dragon Knights, Edgar replied. What exactly are Dragon Knights? I am a little lacking in the way things are here, Naruto said, glancing at him. Edgar nodded and continued, your grandfather will explain everything. We're here anyways. Just go in this door here, and I would like to say it's nice to meet you, Naruto-sama, and welcome to Whirlpool. Naruto was beaming and replied, thank you for welcoming, Edgar, but if you don't mind, just call me Naruto. I don't believe I am better than anyone else. That's why you would make a great king when you're older. Edgar shook his head and left in a cloud of smoke. In an attempt to relax, Naruto inhaled deeply before knocking on the door. The man who had been seated on the throne earlier was standing there grinning at Naruto when the door opened, and he said, welcome Naruto, please come in. He sat down and said, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Rune Uzumaki. I am the king of Whirlpool country, and your grandfather. Naruto entered and saw it was a library. Naruto grinned and replied, you have no idea what it's like for me to finally, after all these years, to finally get to meet my family after believing I was an orphan nearly my entire life. Would it be alright if I hugged you? Rune's response was to pull Naruto into an embrace. She had moved more quickly than Naruto could see. After initially tensing up, Naruto relaxed and held onto his grandfather before breaking down in tears. Despite scowling at this, Rune clung to Naruto. He scowled since he was aware of how Naruto was so impressed by this insignificant deed because of the animosity Konaha had shown him. He vowed never to allow anything to hurt him again, and even though his hatred for that village only deepened, he refused to destroy it because he knew it would hurt his grandchildren's precious people. Rune said, I'm glad to see that you still have a heart in you after what you have been through. Your kitsune blood must flow strongly to still care for people. After Naruto had finally stopped crying, Naruto laughed and replied, I am confused on a lot of things. This being kitsune is still new to me, as well as having grandparents and an uncle. Rune said, that's why I have had you brought here. This is the Royal Library of Whirlpool. In these books is the entire history of Whirlpool and how us and the dragons came to be. This is your history. I know you have a lot of questions and many more than you know to ask, so for the next week you will be in this library reading all these books. I know you are wanting to spend time with me and also your grandmother, but we still have other things we have to take care of. I want you to use your kage bunshins to help you read these books, and don't just read them. Memorize them, as they will help you as not only a kitsune or a prince but also a ninja and also a king. I have already sent word to the Hokage of Konaha and have notified him that because of you being a child of not only a Konaha citizen but one of Whirlpool, you are now referred to as a dual citizen and also a dual ninja. Your training will start in 2 weeks. This first week you are going to learn from these books, and then after that you will get a chance to be with your grandmother and I, as we are taking next week off to be with you and your friends. I don't want you to leave this room, though there is a restroom behind the door to the right with you some cloths as well as a shower in there and a bedroom to the door on the left. Food will be brought to you for your meals so you can finish at your own pace. Any questions you have left after this week we can answer afterwards. Do you understand? Then, after giving it some thought, Naruto said, yes how should I refer to you? Rune grinned and replied, if we are not in the throne room you may call me grandfather or Rune, however you are more comfortable, unless it is something that is a public affair, and then you either call me Rune-sama or Lord or some title like that. There are not many affairs like that unless it's a wedding or we have a formal guest, which we don't have many. I am sorry I can't stay and talk more, Naruto, but if I want to spend next week with you then I have to get my duties done. Smiling, Naruto remarked, I understand, Gramps. Before departing, Rune gave Naruto one last hug and remarked, you're just like your mother, disrespectful to adults. I'm glad to see you inherited that trait from her. Breakfast would be delivered in approximately an hour, so start when it's ready. As he watched him go, Naruto grinned broadly and said, I will make you proud. He then made more than 200 cage bunshins, each of whom picked up a book and began reading. Ellen bowed and said, "Her Majesty is waiting there for you. I will take my leave now." Haku followed Ellen through the castle until she was led into a garden where she saw the woman she believed to be the queen reading a book while seated beneath a sakura tree. "Welcome Haku, I am Queen Rina, Naruto grandmother. It's a pleasure to meet you face to face," Haku said as he approached the woman who had looked up from her book. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty," Haku said with a bow. "It seems that you were trained in proper etiquette. That's good. I know that you must have a lot of questions and I will try to answer them all. But before we begin I would like to tell you a story. I'm sure that it will answer many of your questions." Deal, Rina said with a smile and a motion for Haku to sit. Haku nodded and Rina continued. "Many demons, angels, and divine beings had been brought here to end the war because it was not just a war for lives, but also for the very souls of people. The Lord of all creation finally had enough and created two other worlds, one for demons and one for angels. After witnessing the destruction of the world that had begun to recover from the demons, angels, and humans fighting, humans vowed never to be so weak again, so they began seeking power. At first, they believed that if they had allies with the only power left by the Lord of creation, they would be protected, so they sought out all the divine beings and asked them for blessings or protections. Many did so, and that is how bloodlines were first created. After a while, people grew conceited about the gifts they had received and decided they wanted more. As a result, the divine beings decided not to give them any more, so man began looking for ways to get what he wanted. They attempted to capture the divine beings and began a war among themselves over who would receive the prizes. Eventually, man began to forget about the beings because they had gone into hiding, but over the years, he would find one or more of them, realize their power, and devise ways to obtain it. It was during this period that humans learned the first secrets of chakra. When that happened, the world changed forever because man became so conceited about his newfound knowledge. As the world went on and man's quest for power continued, they decided that no one would stop them from hunting down the divine beings until only a few remained. During this time, the divine beings were at odds with themselves over what to do. Some wanted to punish humans, while others wanted to live in peace. The ones who wanted to punish humans quickly turned into creatures of mass destruction, as you know from the tale of the Kyuubi that was revealed because of its relationship with Naruto. After the near death of humanity, the kitsunes and dragons made a deal with those who wanted to wipe out humankind. We agreed that we would watch people from a distance and that when a civilization became too determined to pursue power, we would go back and destroy them to the basics once more. Although we did not like that we had to kill, we felt that if we did not set them back every few centuries, they would not only destroy themselves but also us. The others agreed with us, and for the past few thousand years, that has been the norm. We feared that if we did not stop the other divine beings, they would destroy humans and themselves, so this was our only option to balance things out and allow everyone to survive. Our young have stood side by side, and when my grandson asked for the ritual a few days ago, the people of this land saw his life and voted as one people and accepted him as the prince by not only birthright but also choice. The dragons and the kitsunes came here to these islands and set them up so that we could live as such, believing that if we stayed away from humans for the most part we could live in peace. The kitsunes were the wiser of the two and agreed to be the leaders, while the dragons chose to be the guardians of the kitsunes because they were the stronger of the two. The symbol on her shirt depicts a kitsune and a dragon chasing each other in a circle. The kitsune have always protected the dragons, and the dragons have always protected the kitsune. That's what the symbol on our outfits mean. It's a balance of wisdom and strength. Neither gets an upper hand, nor is the other stronger or more inferior than the other. After Rina finished speaking, Haku sat quietly and inquired, "So what is it that I need to know now?" According to Rina, you have been accepted as the fiancé of Naruto, and as you know this body you have is not your own, but now it is. This body looks just like your other one, but now instead of human blood flowing through you, you have the blood of the kitsunes flowing through you. The history I just told you is the history of our people. I felt that you would need to know about it since one day you will be queen of this kingdom. Haku listened and inquired, "I don't mean to sound disrespectful or anything, but I have a question that has been in my mind ever since I first heard about this. Naruto is your grandson and the only heir you have from what I understand, since neither his uncle or mother are around to rule. What I was curious about was what would have happened if Naruto would not have come here. Is there another Uzumaki or is there more kitsunes or I am not really sure how to ask what I am thinking." Rina smiled and said, "I understand. The truth is that even with Naruto being born an Uzumaki, he still might not have been prince. You see, we don't just give the crown to those who are born of the family. The people as a whole, not just the dragons or the kitsune, but both have to agree on the choice for heir to the throne. The Uzumaki clan has ruled over this land since we first settled together, but had it died out we have a test that was agreed when we first settled here. The test is one of wisdom, strength, courage, honor, and loyalty. The entire people would watch all who entered the contest and then vote who they would follow. The test was the one Naruto demanded when he got here. You can't cheat or be bribed into doing it because your entire life is displayed for all the people, so if you are doing it for unworthy reasons the people would know. We just have always had the Uzumaki family do the trials first. In fact, that was why when Naruto demanded it he first had to pass the test to be all out. One was to see if he was quick to anger, and that was why the guard got in his face. One was to see if he would bow to someone who is stronger, which he did not, and one was his determination. When he warned the guard he passed that test. I understand. So what happens now? Said Haku with a smile. Rina replied, well, I want you to go and test your new body here in this garden with me here, and if you have any questions like how to transform into a kitsune or if something is not right that you think is wrong, let me know. Bekwase, the next week your body will be setting itself to your soul, so and after that the only way to leave it is to die, but you would go back into the seal on Naruto and then have to get a new body to readjust Aegean. This would keep going on until he dies. It's the same way for me and every other wife or wives of a kitsune for nearly 10,000 years. When this week is over you will meet your new bodyguard and then begin your kitsune training along with Naruto. Haku inquires, what do you mean by that? The guard, I mean. Rina clarified, well, remember when I told you our children stood side by side with those of the dragons? You being a kitsune now will have one bodyguard who will stand by you and protect you if you need it. She will be the same age as you. Naruto will have one as well, but as you know that person is Zabuza, who is now a dragon. We do this to show everyone that we are equal to our friends the dragons. This way neither has any secrets from the other, and this sign of trust only makes the unique bond we have that much greater. Haku inquired, how am I a kitsune and how is Zabuza a dragon? Rina replied, good question. Remember how I said we are divine beings? We don't have mystical powers that can just make things happen. Remember when I told you about how we blessed humans with bloodlines? The truth of that is we as divine beings can bless the souls of people, so what we do is go and bless the soul, and then through ritual sealing we create a body that just covers the soul like skin over your organs. Think of it like cake frosting. We take the ingredients that are the flour that is a normal human and the extra that we want based on what kind of cake to make, and we add things in it to make it unique like bloodlines, but now in your case it's making you a kitsune, and then we cover the cake with the frosting, which is your new body. Since your body and soul have the changes in it, you think about your children, you pass it on to like slices of a cake. Even though the slice is not the original cake, it still has the stuff in it that had made the cake unique. Haku nods, stands up, and begins experimenting with simple moves to see how her body responds. She then moves on to her bloodline, and so on. Rina's explanation surprised her, and the more she considered it, the more it made sense. For his part, Zabuza was having a terrible time. He was informed that he needed to test out his new body, and there was no better way to do so than by fighting, after he woke up and led to a meeting with Aragon, who gave him all the details. Being a dragon was becoming more and more enjoyable for Zabuza, and the dragons soon began to respect him as he was making good progress in the battle because of his experience and battle instincts. He was currently a dragon of about mid-rank, but he was picking things up fast. He fought hand to hand with the other 20 dragons, and the only thing that bothered him was the 5 dragons sitting on the wall, breathing fire, water, lightning, mud, and wind at him. As he created a mist to cover the battlefield, Zabuza thought, this is just like the test I took to be a member of the 7 swordsmen. I love this. After the dragons had all halted, Zabuza laughed and remarked, it's my turn to enjoy myself. 8 points, heart, liver. When a water dragon emerged from the mist and struck the fire breather, knocking him unconscious, Aragon laughed and thought, this guy is going to make a great dragon. What the hell? Naruto found a quick method to learn the books and memorize them more quickly after eating breakfast. After creating 400 clones, he made the decision to begin with the oldest and proceed from there. One bookcase at a time, reading each book or scroll. He estimated that he could read 1.5 bookcases per day until he finished the last one because there were 10 bookcases. Each shelf contained about 200 books and 100 scrolls. When one of the clones became frustrated, the other 100 would take over and dispel the knowledge he had just absorbed. This prevented him from experiencing information overload and also made going through the books and scrolls faster. He would eliminate the clones in groups of 20 at each meal until they were done, and then he would repeat the process with 400 clones until the next break. The origins of the first bloodlines and the history of battles intrigued him. After reading about some historical battles, he reflected on the few actual battles he had fought in and realized how his battles with Mizuki, Zabuza, the Demon Brothers, the Gato Men, and the Iwa Nin could have turned out very differently. This straightforward insight helped him realize that, despite his luck, he wasn't as good as he believed. As he read about the conflicts of World War I, World War II, and the last battles before the Great Intervention, as it was known, when the demons and angels were transported to a different location, That fact greatly alarmed him. As Naruto sighed and sat there contemplating, his grandfather entered, noticed the expression on his face, and inquired, "What's wrong?" Naruto stopped and said, "My life is nothing but luck. Every fight that I have been in since I was a ninja has been won by nothing but pure luck. The actions I took in each of those fights could have gotten me killed." Rune grinned as she said, "That's one of the reasons I wanted you to read these things. I noticed it when I watched you memories. You had some good ideas, but the way you did them was what hurt. I wanted you to realize that so when we begin your training you will be ready, especially after what I learned." Curious, Naruto questioned, "What?" Rune stated, "I was informed by an interested party who I promise not to say until he thinks you're ready that some men are going to be coming after you soon. One of them is the man who killed the Uchiha clan. Except for his brother, they want you to take your uncle out of you and kill you. I don't want to see this happen after first meeting you, so your training is going to help you get strong fast, but it's not just physical strength. What good is being strong if you're not smart enough to use it wisely?" Sitting quietly, Naruto uttered the words, "I understand." Rune replied, "Good. I wanted to tell you that your friend Zabuza is turning out to be even better than we thought. My friend Aragon has told me that he is very good and that he wants permission to give him the advanced training when he's ready. I told him I had to ask you, so I am asking you since you know them better than we do. In your judgment, do you trust Zabuza and Haku enough that you would fight and die for them? Do you think they would do the same for you, and do you believe that they are worthy of learning all of our secrets?" Naruto replied, "Yes, Zabuza is a little rough, but inside of him is a good heart. Haku is like her namesake. Pure as snow. I admit she has killed, but so have I. But what I mean is that she protects what is precious to her, and I am the same. Even though I just got here, I feel that this place is precious to me, and I would die to protect it. Bekwase, I feel at home here." Rune nodded and continued, "I understand this is and will always be your home, but you also have people in Konaha you feel the same way for. For now you are a ninja of both villages. Someday you will be leader of this when your duty is to Konaha. For now, however, I have issued a warning to Konaha, and I am telling you this: if they hurt you Aegean like they have, the people of Whirlpool will retaliate. You are the prince of Whirlpool, not by blood and not by namesake. You have been chosen as the next king. You said you would fight to protect us, and we would fight to protect you. Do you understand what that means?" After giving it some thought, Naruto remarked, "Yes, I understand. It's like the will of fire the old man told me about." Rune replied, "Good. Now let me get back to your studies. I will be sending a message in a few days to Konaha. Do you have anything you would like to be said or sent?" Naruto reflected and said, "Well, I would like for the Hokage to let Ayame and her dad at the ramen stand along with Iruka know that I am okay, and ask Iruka to watch Konohamaru for me. Him and his two friends see me as a leader. Zabuza and Haku have friends there who I think would maybe like to hear we made it safe or something, so you might ask them. Tell them if they do send something that I said hi and thanks for the supplies and everything, and I hope they're both doing okay." Naruto resumed his reading after Rune nodded and said, "I will, and good luck with the rest of your reading." However, he paused to consider what his grandfather had said about some men pursuing him, for his uncle Uchiha was one of them. "Okay. Listen up while you're reading. If you find anything about the weaknesses and strengths of specific bloodlines, especially the Sharingan, read it carefully and then bring it to me to read, because we have to get ready," he said, glancing at his clones after reading about the creation of bloodlines. With a resounding yes, the clones resumed their reading. Naruto scowled as he realized how drastically his life was changing and returned to reading his battle book. The members of Team 7 were not pleased that Naruto had been gone for almost 3 weeks. Kakashi actually arrived on time the following day after they returned with the new member, a social nightmare named Sai, who was their age, but because of his behavior and the derogatory names he used toward everyone, they all wanted to kill him. He appeared to be as skilled as Sasuke, but he refused to demonstrate any other abilities beyond those currently required. For his part, Kakashi was wary of him, but the bags under his eyes were a result of not only the emotional struggle he had been going through since their conversation the day they returned, but also the hate, pranks, and traps he was receiving from the other senseis, as well as the nightmares he had been having about Naruto dying on the wave mission due to his failure and his inability to unwind with his porn. When Kurenai learned what she could do if Kakashi was caught with the book, she posted a reward after the Hokage told her about his punishment, which had made his life miserable. After hearing from his grandfather, uncle, Naruto's teammates, and Iruka about what had happened to his boss on the mission, as well as about his training trip and the fact that he was the Yondaime's son, the Konohamaru Corp began to look at Naruto with even greater admiration and had started playing practical jokes. Who could he be playing a practical joke on? After hearing his uncle and his girlfriend Kurenai discuss it and her small reward, as well as receiving subtle clues from Iruka, who had created a class project for extra credit that involved setting traps for Kakashi, he was now setting traps at each of Kakashi's favorite hiding places. The issue is that the pranks included everything from explosive tags and stink bombs to cameras and books. Yes, Kakashi's life has been nothing short of hell thus far. When he couldn't find anyone to let his eyes drop, Sasuke became enraged. He was angry not only because he had to watch Sakura attempt to learn the same jutsu he had copied with his bloodline for hours, but also because it was taking her longer due to her smaller chakra pool. When the Hokage said he wanted her to get up to speed on the weight training, she was wearing 1/8 of her body weight, just like Sasuke, and he was watching her run around Konaha. Since she was always slower and had less stamina than either him or Naruto, Kakashi made Sakura practice every day until she could complete the village in the same amount of time, which was 1 hour and 10 minutes, and then he had Sasuke and Sai run around Konaha 5 times and timed them. When they stopped, he took the total time they spent together. Sasuke was upset because Kakashi would not teach him anything more until she caught up, so he was sitting there watching her run around the village while Sai ran alongside her. Up until that point, she had only been able to make it around the village twice. I think I see now why Naruto was so pissed. I have to try and apologize to him when he returns. Kakashi shook his head, looking at Sasuke. He could at least work with his teammates to help them get better faster while helping his own skills. For her part, Sakura was beginning to feel conflicted about Sasuke when they discovered so much about Naruto. It was already awful enough that he insulted him and said that he wasn't deserving of what he had. Then there is the fact that he threatened to kill her if she did not finish quickly. Kakashi had warned Sasuke that he would ensure his bloodline was permanently cut off if he heard him threaten a teammate in that manner again. He would then simply follow Kakashi's instructions before sitting down to think. He would become aloof whenever someone brought up Naruto, and the worst part was that Sai, the new guy, was constantly inquiring about him. He asked everything he could think of about Naruto after learning that he was the son of the Yondaime, including what kind of underwear he wore and how he trained. To make matters worse, she and all the other rookie genins had been the target of numerous inquiries about Naruto from people in the town. Naruto left a message for the Hokage from the land of Whirlpool a little more than a week later. At first, Sakura was unsure of the precise events, but it seems that whatever was in that message caused a stir throughout Konoha. Each of the main clan heads sent a message to the Konoha Flame following the Hokage's meeting with the council. According to a one-page advertisement in the Konoha newspaper, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was officially protected by the Hyuga, Yamanko, Abarame, Anuzaku, Nara, Akamichi, and Saratobi clans, and anyone who did anything against him would be viewed as an attack agent and a member of those clans. The heirs all went to Sakura because they were curious as to why. The odd thing is that even now, the majority of the conversation was in a daze. Rewind. After being dragged there by her former friend Ino, Sakura was now seated at the Akamichi barbecue restaurant. Team 8 and Team 10 were seated at a table when she arrived, and Ino forced her to sit down, saying, "Okay forehead, talk what happened to make all of our parents declare Naruto off limits, so to speak." Sighing, Sakura replied, "I don't know, I have not seen him since what happened when we had our C rank mission turned S rank." As everyone became alert, Kiba inquired, "What happened?" Sakura murmured, "Well, our client lied about what our mission was. We were hired to guard a bridge builder named Tazuna. He said the mission was to protect him from bandits. The truth was a businessman named Gato was wanting to kill him because Gato wanted to enslave the people of Wave." Everyone turned as a voice asked, "What do you mean, Sakura?" Kurenai and Asuma entered, accompanied by a man wearing green spandex and 3 other genins, and they all sat down at the table. And with a smile, Shoji said, "Hey sensei." Asuma grinned, and Sakura explained, "A year or so prior to our mission, Gato publicly beheaded the hero of Wave to demonstrate to the people of Wave what happens to anyone who gets in his way. The man was our client's son-in-law, who was constructing a bridge that, when completed, would cause Gato to lose all authority over Wave. In any case, Sasuke beat the Demon Brothers, a pair of Chunins that Gato hired after he went missing, and Naruto was sliced by one of their weapons. As Kiba put it, what a klutz." Sakura instinctively slapped Kiba across the table, much to everyone's surprise. Kurenai then asked, "What happened?" "The Demon Brothers use poison in their weapons, so tell us, Sakura." Sakura pretended nothing had happened. "After Naruto stabbed himself and bleed the poison out, we continued the mission," Sakura said, crossing her arms. "We ran into Zabuza and Naruto saved Kakashi's life, but a fake hunter nin interrupted the battle at the last second and put Zabuza in a fake death. Kakashi was hurt from the fight and chakra exhaustion's effects. Following that, we met the client's family at his house, where Kakashi gave us the tree climbing chakra exercise to prepare for our rematch with Zabuza. Naruto put in a lot of work, and on the day of the Battle of the Bridge, we left him asleep at the house due to chakra exhaustion." All 3 senses exchanged glances at this point. Sakura kept going. "Anyways, when we got to the bridge, Zabuza had knocked out all the workers. Sasuke started to fight the hunter nin while Kakashi fought Zabuza. I guarded the client. Naruto arrived shortly after that, having taken care of 2 merc that Gato had come to kidnap the client's family. I don't know exactly what happened because of the hidden mist jutsu, but an evil power washed over the bridge that made it hard to breath, and I know I thought Sasuke was dead, but the masked nin had only put him in a fake death like he did Zabuza. Kakashi did something that sounded like birds chirping and went to kill Zabuza, but the hunter nin took the blow at the last moment. Guy stated, Chidori, also known as 1000 birds, Kakashi only original jutsu continue. Sakura shrugged and remarked, anyway, after the nin died, Gato showed up with a lot of merc and declared that he was going to double-cross Zabuza. Anyhow, Naruto spoke to Zabuza, but I couldn't hear him because I was too far away, but I did see him take out a kunai and throw it to him, which he caught in his teeth because he had kunia in both of his arms. When the villagers arrived, Naruto and Kakashi used Cage Bunshin to scare the merc away after Zabuza charged through the men, killing multiple of them before killing Gato. When Sasuke woke up, Naruto took the bodies of Zabuza and the hunter nin and buried them. He mentioned making friends with them, but I called him a fool based on what transpired later. I suppose I was mistaken. With everyone inquisitive, Ino questioned, what happened? Sakura murmured, for some reason Naruto started to change after that day. He started training by himself and took Zabuza's sword and learned pressure points. Trust me, he knocked me out a few times anyways. He kept complaining Kakashi was playing favorites with Sasuke, and somehow he had found Gato base. He wound up walking into an ambush with some of the mercs from the bridge and an Iwa nin named Ottilie, White. Each of the senseis winced at this point, and Ino questioned, what's wrong, sensei? Asuma murmured, Ottilie White, S-rank missing nin from Iwa. He was called the Maiden Killer. He became a missing nin after he raped and killed over 200 men, women and children a few years ago. The cage there had no choice but to make him a missing nin after he raped one of the clan head's daughter in front of her husband before he killed her and stabbed the husband 20 times and left him to bleed to death. What happened after that? Sakura exhaled and said, Naruto heard how that Ottilie guy had planned to attack the client's family while I was guarding them, and Naruto was guarding the client at the bridge. Where were Kakashi and Sasuke? Inquired Kurenai. Sakura replied, well, Kakashi took Sasuke every day to train after he awoke his Sharingan. Kurenai said, Sakura, finish the story, while cracking her knuckles beneath the table. Sakura responds by saying, somehow some nins from Whirlpool came and Naruto killed the Iwa nin, but not before he bragged who Naruto father was. Turned out one of the nins from Whirlpool was Naruto uncle. As everyone gasped, Shino uttered the words, Naruto killed that Iwa nin. Sakura replied, yeah, his uncle and the other nins that was with him were too busy fighting the mercs to help, and the Iwa nin wanted Naruto head. He wanted the glory of killing the Yondaime's son. That made everyone at the table wince. Are you sure about that? Guy inquired. Sakura looked perplexed and replied, yes, the Hokage even confirmed it. He looks just like his dad. If you think about it, just add those strange whiskers to the Yondaime and he's the spitting image of him. Asuma inquired, well, what happened after he killed the Iwa nin? Sakura responded, well, he raided Gato hideout and gave the people of Wave all the money and treasure he found to help them recover minus a few changes of cloths he kept for himself. He came back in him and Kakashi had words Aegean, but I don't know about what. We completed the mission and the people of Wave named the bridge after him. On the way back Naruto had switched places with a Cage Bunshin and had came back ahead of us. I haven't seen him since, but I know he made it here and left. Kiba replied, wait a minute, Naruto is the son of the Yondaime, killed an S-rank missing nin, became a hero of the country and has family from another village. What next? He's engaged to some hot chick and a prince. Everyone turned to stare at the girl with the buns in her hair as giggling could be heard, and Lee questioned, what's so funny, Tenten? According to Tenten, well, dog boy, actually yes on both of those. Everyone exclaimed, what? What do you mean Tenten? Asuma inquired. Tenten murmured, from what I was told when he came in our shop to resupply before he left, his mother was the princess of Whirlpool country and he is engaged to a girl through an arranged marriage. I know who, but I can't tell you who she is because I was sworn not to by my father, but apparently his uncle can't take the throne, so when Naruto get old enough he is next in line to be king after his grandparents step down. That's what he said though. Everyone was in disbelief. He's troublesome. Is he going to be back? Shikamaru sighed. Tenten replied, yes. He's supposed to be back for the Chunin exams. I know he's supposed to use his summons to send a message to the Hokage every couple of weeks. Ino asked, what summons does that idiot have, as everyone's ears perked up. Tenten replied, all I know is he summoned something called Gamabunta 2 times in a row. This caused everyone to stare at the senseis as they all fell out of their chairs. With a start, Asuma questioned, are you sure about that, Tenten? Tenten replied, yeah. He was bragging to my dad about it, though he said something about some pervert Arthur, but I was busy getting his things so I did not hear him too well. Kiba inquired. What's so special about this summon you all are talking about? How can some pervert make you all beat red like that? According to Kurenai, the only way for Naruto to get the contract to summon Gamabunta is if he were to get permission from the author of those perverted Icha books, none other than Jiraiya of the Sanins. He's being taught by a Sanin, Kiba yelled. No, I just let him sign the contract and he passed Gamabunta test himself, a white-haired man said as he entered. It's good to see you again, Asuma. To what do we owe the pleasure of your visit, Jiraiya-sama? Asuma asked, nodding. The Genins were all in awe. Jiraiya murmured. I was actually looking for all the sensei here and I heard you all talking about Naruto, so I thought I would see what you were saying. I hate to say it, but everything you heard is true. Naruto is the prince of Whirlpool country, and to put it bluntly, after they saw his memories of what his life was to prove who he was, let's just say that Konaha not being destroyed because of about 10 people. He sat down. Sakura inquired. What do you mean by that? Why would them looking at his memories make them want to attack Konaha? Jiraiya replied. I did not say attack, I said destroy, and they could do it no problem. As for why they would want to destroy Konaha, the answer is simple, Kyuubi. Every sensei winced, and Asuma questioned, Jiraiya-sama, what are you doing? Jiraiya murmured, it's part of the reason Konaha is still standing. If Konaha does not want an open war with Whirlpool, they have to do certain things. The truth of Naruto heritage must be told, since you all know about him being the son of the Yondaime and the princess of Whirlpool. I don't have to say that. Next, the truth of the Kyuubi defeat has to be told, and Konaha has to make a formal apology to Naruto as well as admit what they have done. Failure to do all three would result in Konaha destruction. Everyone stared at Shikamaru as he closed his eyes and uttered, it's sealed, ain't it? Jiraiya responded, smart kid. The truth is Naruto's father could not kill Kyuubi, so he sacrificed his life to summon the death god to seal Kyuubi into his newborn son. Naruto was made a human sacrifice at nearly 3 hours old so Konaha can survive, and Konaha hates him for it. The people of this village have tried to kill him over 2,000 times, not to mention all the hatred, abuse, torture, starvation. Hell, they even had all of you be cruel to him and you never realized it. Like all the other rookies, Sakura was shocked and asked, what do you mean, how did we do anything to him? Asuma replied, how would you feel if everyone your age was told to stay away from you like you were the plague? How would you feel if you said hello to a kid to try and be friends? Parents tell their kids to beat him up, and if he fought back they would have a BNU arrest him. How would you feel if the teachers put genjutsu over your test and burned your books so you could not learn and did everything they could to make sure you died? Do you really think he liked orange? Tenten continued, that's all any store would sell him. Dad told me when he learned who he really was that he had other store owners in the past tell him that if he sold anything to Naruto without the Hokage forcing him, they would burn our store to the ground. And he even told me once that a civilian walked up to me at the academy to push me on a swing, and his friends were talking to my dad and said that's how easy it would be to hurt me if he did not do as they said. Everyone was astonished. Guy replied, that's why the only place that would serve him food was the ramen stand. Bekwase, the people would make the same threats or make him pay 3 times more than everyone else for rotten food. Jiraiya stated, and the worst part is because of the law the Hokage passed to try and make it where he could try and have a normal life. He never knew why he was hated until an academy teacher tricked him into breaking into the Hokage tower and stealing the forbidden scroll by saying he could learn one jutsu on it he would pass the academy test. Truth was he tried to kill Naruto and told him about the law and the Kyuubi inside of him, but he tried to tell him that he was the Kyuubi instead of it being sealed when he saved Iruka, who showed up in time to save Naruto and learned Kage Bunshin. Ino inquired, so is that how he passed? He learned Kage Bunshin instead of regular Bunshins. Jiraiya replied, he physically can't make regular Bunshin, at least not yet. He would have to get his chakra control to perfect to be able to make regular ones. Bekwase of the fox in him. Kurenai questioned, so do any of you think he is the Kyuubi or the hero his father wanted him to be seen as? As everyone gasped. Shino replied, he is just like my clan. Our bugs live in us, but they are different than us. Everyone had to agree after giving that some thought. Asked, is the Kyuubi that weird feeling I felt on the bridge? Asuma replied, yes, the seal was made so Naruto can use the Kyuubi chakra, and when Naruto dies so does the fox. Besides the chakra, Naruto has a healing factor that is like 10x faster than a normal person, and from what we can tell his children, if he had any, would most likely have it also, but that's just a guess because no Jinchuriki has ever had children. People always kill them before they're old enough to. Naruto said that he was pulled into the seal and faced the fox and told him that he had to pay rent by giving him chakra when he asked for it, or he would find some way to kill himself and take the fox with him. Shikamaru responded, Now that we know the truth about why Naruto is hated here, why would Konoha be scared enough of a country I have never heard of to admit this? It does not make sense. Jiraiya sighed and said, the reason you have not heard about Whirlpool is they try and stay out of the rest of the world's affairs, and because of that Whirlpool is the oldest of the hidden villages as well as the strongest and most secretive. During the Second Ninja War, Iwa tried to go there and get them to aid in fighting against us. The king, who is Naruto's grandfather, refused, and an Iwa nin tried to blackmail the king into doing it by trying to kidnap Naruto's uncle. His uncle, named Sherlock Uzumaki, went to the capital of Iwa and destroyed half of the village in less than a day and killed nearly 1/5 of Iwa's ninja. They sent a simple message to each of the hidden villages after that. Leave us out of your fight or the next village won't be standing, until I went there following Naruto to make sure he made it safely and that this was not a trap. We did not even know the name of that one ninja or that he was Naruto's uncle. Naruto's mother kept who she was a secret to everyone. All we knew was that she was from Whirlpool. Each of us who fought in the war heard about that attack, but without a name. No one knew who he was that did it, and no one who saw him lived. When they heard this, everyone was either astonished or alarmed. Jiraiya continued. The heir to the throne of Whirlpool has to take a test, but the test is one that can't be cheated on. The people of the country all watch the heir's entire life and then vote if they want him or her to rule over them, and Naruto was given the test and they saw everything that has happened to Naruto. That is why all the clans are protecting Naruto. They are scared that if anyone hurts him the entire village would be destroyed. Neji inquired, why would Naruto's uncle not take the throne instead of him? Jiraiya replied, simple. Remember the test I told you where they saw his memories? He stopped at the scene where he destroyed part of the capital of Iwa. He said that he could not in good conscience lead the village after killing so many. He is a special Junin. It's not him the council is scared of, though everyone over the age of 15 are at least shonen level in the village, including civilians, and there are about as many people in Their village as there are in Konoha. Based on one ninja, the rest of the world is scared of Whirlpool. Imagine what the rest are like. With a sigh, Shikamaru remarked, I think we all see Naruto differently, but it's too troublesome to say. Ino remarked, who would have thought that a secret like this would be hidden from us? As everyone was lost in thought. Jiraiya let out a sigh. I should warn you that when Naruto returns he will be different. He has been through this torture his whole life, and then discover who his parents are from an enemy ninja when no one in his home village would tell him, and then to learn that he had family out there that if they would have known about him would have protected him from what he's been through. He is going to be different. Shikamaru inquired. What is the real reason that the people of Whirlpool wanted everyone in the village to know the truth of Naruto? Surely they think that this would make some people hate him more. Jiraiya looked at Shikamaru as everyone else looked at him and said, you're smarter than most think. You're right. The truth is Naruto now has immense political power because of him being confirmed Prince of Whirlpool. Naruto, even though everything that has happened, still wants to protect those who are precious to him and have been kind to him, and there are less than 20 that are included in that. The king respects that and has given Konoha a chance with two options. One, Naruto will be represented as a ninja of both the Hidden Leaf Village and Whirlpool that both villages can be proud of and work toward a possible treaty, or the second is after everyone knows the entire truth. If Konoha chooses to ignore the warning they have been given, the people of Whirlpool will have no problem killing everyone with the exception of those close to Naruto. The king told me that the law that I told you about that limited your knowledge as to what was the truth is what helped give Konoha the chance to keep from fighting. His exact words were, parents always want to see their children surpass them. The choices that will affect the future will be determined by the actions of his peers. He does not want people to instantly befriend his grandson but treat him as an equal like he should have been from the start. As he walked away, the others stared at him and a few shook their heads. Neji got up and said, his fate was decided the moment he was born. If people are going to hate him, then there is no way he can change his fate. This threat is nothing and people will do as they please. Ino inquired, what do you think, forehead? Sakura replied, I don't know. With everything that happened and with everything I have learned, I don't understand. It's too much trouble to hate him for that, and I think we should try to get to know him better. Shikamaru sighed. Everyone laughed when Choji remarked, anyone who eats ramen like him is a good person. As they stood up and departed, Kiba rubbed Akamaru's head and remarked, he's an idiot. I don't care if he has the Kyuubi in him or not, I will still kick his ass, right boy? Because of her previous devotion to him, Hinata looked down and stammered, I'm scared of him now. This startled everyone. Hinata, how can you be scared of him? What is the difference between the guy you said you love and who he is? The only thing different is that you now know what's inside him, Kurenai said, looking disappointed in Hinata. Looking up, Hinata remarked, I guess you're right, I don't know, sensei. Shino pushed his glasses up and remarked, as I said, he is no different than my clan. We are not our bug and our bugs are not us. Ino crossed her arms, stood up, and walked away after saying, it doesn't matter, he won't ever be as good as Sasuke-kun. Shino sighed, got up, and walked away, thinking that people's reasoning was nonsensical. Choji replied, "Come on Shika, let's go watch some clouds." Shikamaru got up and walked away with him, saying, "Troublesome." Sakura stood up to try to sort through everything, unsure of what to think. As he rose and walked away, Lee remarked, "I think that it is unyouthful to look at someone whose flames burn brightly like that." As the senseis exchanged glances, Jiraiya pulled out a scroll and gave it to her, saying, "Your friends are doing fine Tenten. In fact, I was asked to give this to you." When she opened it, she read it with laughter and said, "If you send a message back to them, tell them I said we will see." She then got up and walked away. Smiling, all of the senseis were curious after she left. Asuma extinguished his cigarette and asked, "What was that about Jiraiya-sama?"
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.